Hello there, friends. My name is Rachel GNS Middle.
Hold on.
Gilbert and Sullivan is my middle name, and my middle name
ready.
is my last name.
I'm not ready to go.
Oh.
I'm squeaking my glasses. That's a dolphin. Please continue.
What's your name?
Just S. That's what I said last time.
Just S.
Yeah, because I'm an S head. Though, lately I've been kind of a G head too.
An S head.
G?
Oh, like GNS?
Yeah, just S.
Oh, as in just Sullivan.
Yeah, well, I mean.
Oh, okay. Oh, no, I get you. That's interesting.
Yeah, but I like it.
Since when have you become a G head?
Since our recent triumphant production of Utopia Limited.
Really?
Yeah.
So you weren't even a G head like back when...
Nah, I was always a G head.
I was gonna say.
G got me in.
Yeah.
When I first heard
Yeah,
Pirates.
yeah. Okay.
It was the G part that made me go,
Yeah.
that's funny. I don't know who you are. That's funny.
We are here today to discuss the magic of the Gilbert and Sullivan operas by very pedantically ranking every element of them. And today we are doing the patter roles. We discussed these roles for a while last night, or we didn't as much discuss them as we just did scenes from them to see how we like them. And it got me seeing like just what the potential of each one of these was. I really felt like for the first time that things like music and lyrics and dialogue, and I made a third category called emotional and dramatic potential, and I also put that out of 20 because I think the patter characters are like I think that's like really important, especially for them. They're particularly well fleshed out characters, and all of them are pretty good characters.
It's an incredibly high ranking, strong category. There's a
Yeah.
reason why the principal comedian is, for a lot of people, especially back in the day, like the highlight of all of the shows, the reason to go, regardless of the show, might even get the final bow, even if it's a smaller part. I've been in shows that use that kind of that feeling. We were looking at the book yesterday that was organized by who the doily cart patterman was at the time.
Yeah.
So, like, these are so the focus and highlight. Think of the scene in Topsy Turvy where Cart says to Grossmith that they've written a very fine part for him in the next show, and he says, "As one would expect."
Oh yes.
And it's just very clear that, like, well, it's at this point, like, Grossmith's always going to have a good part.
Yeah.
And so that's particularly the Grossmith run from Wells through to Jack Point is quite remarkable, and that last few as it builds up are, I think, really wonderful. Yeah, it's almost a bit embarrassing at times when you play one of those parts, and then you might like be in scenes with characters that you know are not nearly as developed as you, and there's almost a bit of like embarrassment on like the feeling like I wish the whole shows were as balanced as these characters always seem to be.
Because I think that even with characters like Mad Margaret, who are tremendously complex, I mean, I'd say she is probably one of the best characters, but I would say that when it comes to playing things like sadness or unrequited love, that is something that pretty much everyone can tap into. Like, you don't even have to have really gone through that to have some idea of how to play that. But these patter roles, I think, to get the absolute best they can be, require just this absolute total knowledge of one's body and what to do with it, and a completely bulletproof comedic skill. Like, you have to know exactly what every single tiny funny thing is that you do, and like every single movement of your body and every single word you say.
There is a couple that don't get that much to do, but most of them get loads to do.
Oh yeah, and I think it's and what also another thing I found really interesting is that if you take the list of roles and you split them into low status and high status, I found that with the exception of one high status character, all of my high status ones are at the bottom. Actually, I think there was an exception in both cases. There was a low stakes one I put at the bottom and a high stakes one I put near the top. But apart from that, generally, the ones who have a high status and know what they want and know who they are, I put it in the bottom half. And the ones who were cowards and were very insecure and unsure of themselves, I put much nearer the top.
Completely understood.
And it's and it just goes to show that, I mean, because I really think that, to me, vulnerability is very funny. When you've got somebody who understands comedy but is also not scared to just be really exposing to themselves and be really vulnerable, that is, you could just like just somebody being absolutely fearless emotionally with one of these roles and also being really funny. That's the dream.
There are plenty of times I've seen these parts done where I don't think that aspect is tapped into. And it's certainly there in ways that we're going to discuss. So it's really cool when you can have an experience that is as funny as it is humane.
So, okay, what are we start? I don't even know how many there are. Are there 14?
There are...
Or more than that.
16.
Yeah. Right, okay.
So,
What's the first
I have the combined scores.
Mm-hmm.
In bottom place, which is pretty tragic considering you're sitting next to me,
Yeah.
is Mercury and Thespis.
Yeah, I mean, I put in bottom as well. I did enjoy playing this part, and you might not have realised this, but I actually won Best Female Performer for my portrayal of Mercury at the 2014 Gilbert and Sullivan Festival in Harrogate.
I did know that.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
That was good.
But so if anyone can put Mercury in the bottom, it's me, because the trouble is, the issue with Mercury is that it was a fun, high energy part. I did give him a 7 for enjoyment because I did have a good time capering around, but ultimately I had to really work to get that dialogue funny. And the music, it's fun because I'm a bit downtrodden, and he's the only low status one I put in the bottom. But ultimately, you don't know ever what Mercury wants. He says he's a celestial drudge, but he's not really telling you what his dreams are. That would be nice if he actually had a song where he said, this is what I want to do. And then at the end, he got to do it. Because he has no stakes. Like, there is no stakes ever for Mercury through this whole thing. He's disappointed to be left behind, but why? Because he's not old and tired. He doesn't necessarily want a break. So what does he feel? Who is he? It's tough.
Mercury does cartwheels, is what Mercury does.
Yeah. And I remember that scene where the 3 gods come on in the second act and kind of grill me and interrogate me about, why have things gone badly? But there's no stakes. Like, why am I scared? What are they going to do to me? There's just, why does it matter? And then with Thespis, I'm all smug and like, I think you're going to find out really soon. And then suddenly I'm scared. Like, it makes no sense.
This show, it's you've said it before. It's unfair to put Thespis as a show amongst these other ones because its aims were so different.
Yeah.
And the aims being so different means that, like, on this rubric, it will always fall.
That's the trouble.
But it's clear that you could do that abrupt switch if you went incredibly wacky with it, as the burlesque would have been.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think that when it comes to shows like Thespis, and to a lesser extent, Utopia Limited and Grand Duke, you as well as thinking of your character and who you are, you also just have to think what serves the piece. So I did have fun playing Mercury. I mean, I only gave him a 13 for music, because we don't really know what the music is, but there was 2 probably quite serviceable patter songs, and I actually felt that the ones in the Baker Handy score did go suspiciously, like, really well.
Yeah, I like them very much.
Yeah, because there are times when, like, I wasn't sure about bits of the Act 1 finale and how they linked together, but I thought that both of my main songs worked really well, and I really liked them. Lyrics and dialogue I gave a 12 to. Honestly, Mercury's dialogue is not good. As I was saying, there's just no through line. Emotional dramatic potential, I gave an 11. I think that was generous of anything, but I do appreciate that he does have opinions. It's just that you never know what he wants. And then 13 for comic potential, but again, that's just what the actor can do, and the fact that it's meant to be like a little bit sexy, because it's usually like a female playing Mercury.
Yeah, Nellie Farron.
Yeah, exactly, Nellie Farron.
My scores barely matter because I feel like I have so much less insight in it, even though I've been in the show with
Yeah.
you.
How would you play Mercury?
I auditioned for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at the time that they were considering having any voice type in it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's so much of the enjoyment you brought to it is not in the text.
Yeah, you just have to.
We were doing like all the things we were doing that were almost additional business piling on top of it. But I think that's probably in the spirit of it. One could have imagined that the original Thespis production played far looser than the subsequent G&S Savoy canon.
But you were already on stage, and I just, in silence, there's no music, I just could have come on, do a cartwheel, a high kick, and then just look at you. and you're just there going, oh, hello. And that...
That's about right. We wave at each
to
other.
me, I think that if me and you could do Thespis and the whole thing was kind of like that, just everything was just ridiculously over-stylized, that might be a hoot.
Tough. You need so many people to commit to that.
Yeah. And imagine having Stupid Ass and Preposterous, who I actually love.
Yeah.
I love
that
those
was
guys.
good. I like those guys. We didn't have them in our version.
Doomed to disappointment since my earliest years.
Still laughing about that. That's good.
I love that. The fact that this was the part that I won a prize with, in fact, the only prize I've won, because then later I became ineligible because I was technically a professional, so I couldn't win. This was the only time when I was eligible when I actually won something. I think this just goes to show just how strong this list is.
Yes.
This is a really, really strong list.
Well, I'll tell you who's next.
Yeah.
In second to last place.
Is that number 15? Is that 15?
That's 15.
Yeah.
The combined score, with only 7 more points,
Yeah.
is Thespis. In Thespis.
Okay. I think I'd actually put him a little bit higher.
You did.
Yeah. I feel like Thespis has an enormous amount of avant-garde potential in the same way that you play Ludwig and King Paramount. I think that you do a very good job as Thespis. And I think that if you played him, you might think differently.
Yeah, well, you know, I had a good time when I was in Concord, Massachusetts for a sing-out a few years ago. We had a reading of like 5 shows, and one of them was Thespis. And that was just like everybody reading the text. But I threw in a couple of the Baker Henty numbers.
Oh yeah, nice.
Erica played them. I think that the Baker Henty setting from the zoo of the railway song is my favorite part of the whole score.
I love that. And that is what, I mean, the trouble is, it's in the patter song category, which is another really strong, that's going to be another really tough one to do. But honestly, I do think that is Climbing Over Rocky Mountain, the scene in between, and then the railway song is a really strong section. Just in terms of comedy, dramaticness, wackiness. It's just absolutely crazy. I love it. I love that bit. So I think that when I'm being quite down on Thespis, that like the Mortals chorus, I actually think is really good. And I think that my Mortals chorus, it came like 14th out of 27 choruses or something. Like it did pretty well.
I think the Mortals sections are stronger for me than the Gods sections.
Oh god, much more. But Thespis, I gave him a 15 for music. Again, we're not sure, but it was just, I know that railway song would be really good. He's got quite a bit of material.
Yes.
And he's in that really nice quartet in the second half, which also I think was set really well in a Baker Henty one.
Bless you.
Wasn't it Rose of Persia?
That is correct.
He gets to preside over the court scene, which I find hilarious, the picnic scene. I gave him a 15 for lyrics and dialogue as well. I really like this character. 13 for emotional and dramatic potential. I don't think, because he is very conceited and is kind of in his own world, I don't think you can really give him too complex of a character arc, but there is also humour in that. There is also humour in him just being like, I am just living in my own total world. Like, you can have a lot of fun with that, just being an absolute egocentric narcissist. I gave him a 13 again for comedic potential. But honestly, I mean, I guess you could say this about any character, but he could be so funny. I love that when he explains the don't know ya, and then Jupiter comes on, he immediately just goes, don't know ya, don't know, like this is a god. You know, it's just, he just has no idea. He is just completely deluded. He is so delusional, Thespis is. And 7 for enjoyment, which I could have given higher. So, honestly, I really love this guy. And I think that, but I'm imagining you playing him.
I'd like to. It'd be fun. I'd like
Yeah.
this character.
Go on, yeah, tell me.
I would like to say don't know ya. It would amuse me. I'd like to play Thespis. I very happily play Thespis. I think Thespis' material in the version we did is particularly strong. So that take of the show would be very pleasurable. He had 8 for music. And again, when I'm rating music for Thespis, I'm rating what I think the music would have been.
Yeah. But not like the railway song? You don't think that would have been?
That said it.
That would have, yeah.
But I can't. I have to weight it on a scale, I guess.
Yeah.
Because the railway song probably would have been tops.
Yeah. I guess he doesn't really have that much music.
There's the one solo, the quartet
Yeah.
scenes.
I guess I'm just thinking of how good those 2 numbers are. And he does have stuff in the Act 1 and Act 2 finales. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you know, perhaps you're right to kind of give the actual official GNS roles more credit than...
I always will.
Yeah.
But...
No, it makes total sense. And I do... Yeah, we are at a disadvantage not knowing the music as well.
I'm sure it was great.
Yeah.
Based on Climb Over Rocky Mountain, the music's got to be good.
Yeah, of course. Climbing Over Rocky Mountain is one of my favourite numbers in Pirates.
One of my favourite numbers in ever.
Yeah, I love that entrance.
Number 14. Up another 6 points. Is Rudolph from the Grand Duke.
Oh, yeah. I think I put him relatively low as well. Tell me what you feel about him.
Do you know, this is one of the ones I've not done. So, because we've done a lot of Grand Dukes together, but I've usually been Ludwig. I haven't played Rudolph, the Grand Duke of Oakapple.
But
I wonder if I feel like this is like Thespis, that if I got to do it. Do you know, looking at it, the ones I have done in like the least, pretty consistently, like the ones I've almost done the least are all ranked lower for me. So there's a certain weight there that I should acknowledge.
Which is kind of that's almost the opposite to me. Like when I had my big 3-way tie between Ida, Elsie, and Julia, I put the one I hadn't played at the top. Perhaps because I have delusions about how I would play her.
It's aspirational.
Yeah, that's. I put Rudolph a little bit higher than you. And I think that is because he is one of these lower status characters, but ostensibly he is actually high status because he is a Grand Duke. And you hear him being talked about for a long time before he comes on. So then when you finally meet him, that is a moment. The trouble is he lacks physical, he lacks actual material, but really he is in a way the main part of the show because everyone's talking about him the entire time. And then when you finally see him, that is a big moment in the show. And when he introduces himself and he tells you who he is, and then the Baroness comes on, and you learn something more about him. You learn who he is in a romantic sense. And then she goes away, and then you learn his true vulnerabilities. Like, you really get to know this character very, very quickly in a way that you don't even really learn about Ludwig. You really get, like, right to the heart of this character. But then, you don't see him. You don't see him again. And it's heartbreaking because I think that this character is like set up to be, wow, this is a really amazing character. What's he going to learn? What's he going to do? This is incredible. Then he disappears and comes back on again. Oh no, I'm the Grand Duke. The ace is low.
Yes, not only is his absence a weakness that's hard to fix, people have tried. But not only that, but I think that I'm not. Again, this is I think out of all the patter songs, I think um, "You're a Pretty Kind of Fellow" is one of two I've never done.
Yeah.
And I maybe if I do it, I'll be inspired by it. But that's such a weird place to have that number
It
in the
is,
show.
it's just, I don't think it is quite dramatic enough to wake everybody up when it's just about to be the end of the show.
Correct.
And I think that's a big ask of anybody to actually inject that with enough energy to really keep the audience focused. That is a lot.
It's a bit of a burdensome part because I think that I've marked the comedic potential as very high, but I think this is one that it is so far from being actor proof.
Oh god, yeah. This is one of the hardest roles and most thankless on this list. I gave him a 14 for comic potential. I don't think his lines are as funny, but they're pretty good. He's got some funny things that he says with Ludwig. I do like that scene with Ludwig.
It's a good scene.
And the Baroness scene is good. You know, he's a bit cheeky, he's very stingy.
I think that there's a lot of dimension there in his first act solo.
Oh, I love that. Oh, we both like that. I think you marked it a bit lower than I did, actually, in the baritone arias.
I like it very much, but I also like his first. I like all of his Act One material
Yeah,
a lot.
yeah.
I wonder, is his entrance like it's not the instant subversion of your expectation that the Powderman and Mikado entrance is, which has a shorter amount of time before he comes on, but you've built him up in a little bit of a way. And you've also had people insult him, but he gets this huge triumphal entrance. And I think it's very interesting that when you see Rudolph, he does seem to not be the sniveling coward that you're going to learn that he is. So the fact that you get that more gentle reveal, the music, like, considering a pattern to professors, that particular melody is a much more put together person with their MO, as stingy as it may be, but their MO so clearly intact that I wonder if that's less funny than
It is less funny. And I can't really quite put my finger on why. It lacks anxiety. That's why. It lacks tension. Whereas there's something, I mean, I can't wait to talk about the Mikado Patter guy, but his entrance, the music has anxiety there, as if there's something wrong about this. He's in the wrong place. Whereas this just sounds quite chilled out.
Do you know what? And the chorus leading Rudolph on tells you there's something wrong about it, which isn't the same as the music sounding like.
I mean, even
anxious.
though I love that song, narratively it's pretty weak. A pattern to just because it doesn't have any tension to it.
That's just a tune.
Yeah, it is fun though. I do like that song, and it's fun to see how the Chamberlains act around him. So I love it. I would never cut it, obviously, but it's just, I think when you consider other Patter people's entrances, it is a little bit anticlimactic.
The first time you come on as any of these roles is usually a moment.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a couple here where they just show up.
Yeah.
They're really exciting.
Yeah.
Most of these are like,
yeah,
there's the guy.
Wow, the Patter entrances. Oh yeah, we need to talk about every entrance as they come, because all these entrances are such moments. As I guess this is that is Gilbert and Sullivan saying, this is the person that you're going to love in this show. Whereas Rudolph does not get quite that treatment. So,
yes,
number 13.
Number 13 on our list.
Yeah.
Scoring a remarkable 8 points higher than our last entry.
Wow.
Is the Learned Judge.
Huh. Okay. I put the Learned Judge quite high. Way higher than I thought I would, actually. He ended up about halfway up my list.
I wonder, there's this weird double thing with Trial, because Trial's perfect, but it's short.
Yeah.
So I almost have to be like, well, that's half a guy.
So I gave the Learned Judge a 15 for music, I like his music. I gave him... Because I actually really like the patter song in that.
Yes, me too.
I find that really it's so fun for the chorus. I gave him a 15 for lyrics and dialogue. I think that he doesn't have any dialogue, but nobody does in Trial. I only gave him a 12 for his emotional and dramatic potential, because he doesn't really have any at all. You don't really get to know what he feels. He's just a guy. But that's where his humour comes from. And I gave him a 16 for comic potential and an 8 for enjoyment. I really think this guy is very funny. But as I say, the humour comes from the fact that he just isn't at all complex. Like, he's just a wacky fun guy. But I think there's just a lot of places you can go with it. When have you played the judge?
I've done the judge in concerts, sing-outs, potlucks, courts, that sort of environment. A fully staged trial does not come by that often. So I've not gotten to do it. I've gotten to do it without a book in my hand and there's no talking. So I've got to improvise a thing, and it's the kind of role where there's really no staging anyway. You just sit and then you do whatever you want to do. So I've done it after a fashion, but I've not gotten to be worked into it. And I do enjoy it very much.
Yeah.
We both love his entrance. That's a good entrance.
Honestly, the let him speak moment is, I think, actually, when it comes to moments that are impossible to mess up and will always be funny, that is kind of the winner to me. That is one of the most perfect GNS moments. The perfect moments of the kind of let him speak, yes, let him speak, hush, let me speak. Like, hush, hush, he'll tell us how. Like, honestly, that is just absolute comic genius. When people heard that for the first time, that must have completely blown their minds.
They heard that for the first time and they said, we don't want to even listen to La Pericole. They said, let's just watch Trial again.
Is that... Imagine it, like, that is just so funny, and they both Gilbert and Sullivan totally understood why that was funny, and that will never ever not be hilarious to me. But how about your like emotional, dramatic stuff? Like what?
The thing I like emotionally and dramatically about the judge is he does get to steer a lot of the show. So it's, truthfully, it really does feel like, everybody has their moment where like they can turn where the show's going. But the judge has great moments like that where I think the little stretch that I love the most for the judge is after the defendant's second song and the judge sings, "That seems a reasonable proposition," to which I think your client may agree. And then that moment, like, sinks and sinks and sinks. The council responds, and it leads to those, like, gavel hits that are slower than they were in his solo. It's like, boom, boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
That transition is so, like, we're about to go full Bellini, and this is going to be, it's real. It's so real. And
I love a nice dilemma.
That's worth the price of admission. The whole trial by jury leads to a nice dilemma for me.
Yeah,
it's
kind of the Act 1 finale in a way. And it comes a tiny bit late for it.
No, it is in its way.
It is the climax.
It's the climax, and then that last 3.5 minutes. There's only like 4 minutes left after that.
Yeah, it's
and they fly by. They're just furious.
Then it's just like a race to the finish. Yeah,
yes,
it's so good.
I guess the last thing that's interesting about him is that he's one of those characters that he's kind of bad at his job.
Is
because,
he?
Well, because he's done his work diligently, but
he's really lazy, isn't he?
He's like, I guess we'll let the defendant marry two people. He's like, I guess we'll do that.
Like, actually, that is quite funny. Like, he doesn't really want to do his job. It's like he's woken up, like got up at like 11, had some breakfast, had a coffee, like come in, just like sat down. Okay, what are we doing today? And he just doesn't care.
He's sort of from a different type of show too. Like he's a bit of a lech, because when he sees the bridesmaid come in, he has the usher give her a note.
Yeah. Oh god.
And then he has the usher like give the note to Angelina when she comes in. He's just like on the prowl, and it's weird how actually it's a show in which, because everybody's shallow, that it doesn't feel gross. It's just
that's the thing. It doesn't feel predatory because Angelina is just completely fixated on benefiting financially and is willing to manipulate the situation to get what she wants. But you don't hate her for it.
No.
You don't hate anyone. They're all kind of unpleasant but likeable people. And that is really interesting. I definitely want to do Trial again in a way that I've really thought about the characters, maybe in a way that people haven't before. That'd be fun. Who is number 12?
Sir Joseph Porter.
Oh my god. Okay. These are ones that were in... I mean, I'm not disappointed because none of these are characters that I'm particularly attached to, but they were all quite a bit higher up, and Will hasn't yet discussed all the people at the bottom of my list.
But this is one I've never done in a full production.
Okay.
So again, it's pretty low for me because I've not gotten a chance to do it. But
Joseph Porter is probably my favourite high status patter guy.
Mm-hmm.
So he is very confident, he knows what he wants, and yet he is still funny. There's something inherently funny about him. And he's also very intelligent as well. He is one of the cleverest and most interesting patter people. Like he's very successful because of his ambitiousness and his intelligence. But he's also got this slight level of delusion that makes him funny. And he is also the most queer-coded character in GNS for me, by a long way. But in this way that it's totally not even an issue, and actually nobody around him even cares about it. Like, they all know, they're all just like, yeah, that's fine. And I love to think of it just being that everyone in the universe understands him to be, oh yes, he's very attracted to men. And of course he's going to marry a woman because that's just what everyone does. But we completely accept and celebrate the fact that he's going to fancy us, and that's fine because we like this guy. He's an awesome guy, and he inspires us. And so yeah, might be a bit kind of flirty with us, but you know what? I like him, and maybe I feel like flirting back a bit. You know, I honestly think that's the kind of vibe between the sailors and Sir Joseph. They understand exactly that he's flirting with them, but they kind of feel uplifted by it, and it's not like at all predatory or them feeling like kind of invaded. I think maybe Rafe is the only one who doesn't understand, because Rafe has this really charming obliviousness. But like certainly like the others know, and they just love him. And I think Sir Joseph is a really lovable character. But then you do get to see his dark side as well. You get to see a really dark side of him a bit later. And that is interesting too. But yeah, so why did you put him a bit lower than I did?
I'll tell you what I did.
Yeah.
With all of my rankings, I basically picked a 20 for every category.
Oh, okay, that's a good thing to do.
And then an 18, and then a 17.
That's often how I do it.
And I went down all the way. And Sir Joe had a 10 for music. Because...
I gave him a 14. Yeah,
But it's like purposefully flat. So it's hard...
Never mind why and wherefore, I think is a really good number.
But it's not his number.
Yeah.
He's in it. It's hard. I mean...
Actually, I guess his music... He doesn't have much music at all, actually. No, you're right. For some reason, I thought he had way more music than he did. He actually doesn't have very much at all.
One half of the music he sings is I Am the Monarch of the Sea.
That... You know what? Yeah, I marked him too highly for music.
It's okay. I took care of it.
Okay. No, but yeah, I did. I definitely would have... He would have moved down a couple of places, actually.
What's that bit that happens twice? That goes, my pain and my distress.
And I keep getting that confused. I keep forgetting which one he's on. I mean, I did direct it a couple of summers ago, and now I think I'm pretty solid on it. But until I did it then, I was so confused with that last section.
Okay, so would you want to play trivia?
Yeah.
Okay, so the octet just ends.
Yeah.
And it's bum 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 ba da 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 ba 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 ba. No, that's for porn. That's for wanting one.
My pain and my distress, it is not easy to express my amazement but my surprise. You may learn from the expression in my eyes. My lord, one word, the fact is not before you. That word was injudicious, I allow. That one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know
But
what?
that is not good. That is not good musically. Oh my god, I hate those transitions.
And then-
They are nasty, actually. That is not good. That is so bad. For Sullivan. I mean, I'm sure I couldn't do any better. But those crunching transitions between both, it's like every character has their own music, and the orchestra has to like come to a standstill and dial it back, and every time the new character sings, everything grinds to a halt and has to start again. That is really bad, that little exchange section.
That's the entire Act 2 finale as well. His comedic potential is a 12. But again, that's because I've given out scores for 13 through 20.
I gave a 16 for that.
He's not on stage enough. He's on stage less than Rudolph, I bet.
Probably. But I do just love his character. I love his hypocrisy. And I do think that when he is on stage, those, with the exception of the Rafe Josephine scenes, those are just really good scenes. The dialogue in Pinafore is really good. And he has some incredible dialogue. He's speaking to everyone in a friendly way, but the way he speaks to the captain, like, terrifies the captain. And the captain is just so scared of... The captain wants to impress him so badly. But Sir Joseph is just, like, completely not impressed. I love it.
Hardly ever, Sir Joseph. They are an excellent crew and do their work thoroughly without it.
Don't patronise them, sir. Pray, don't patronise them.
Certainly not, Sir Joseph.
Look, you are their captain as an accident of birth. I cannot permit these noble fellows to be patronised because an accident of birth has placed you above them and then below you.
I am the last person to insult a British sailor, Sir Joseph.
You were the last person who did, Captain Corcoran.
He's just a guy. I've got no bone to pick with him.
Does anyone here know Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where they just show, like,
If I was just this guy, you know?
They just show this clip of his therapist. It goes, well, Zaphos just this guy, you know?
If I was just this guy, you know?
I love that. So, we are down to number 11 of the Patter people. And what is number 11?
It is King Gama.
Okay, we're finally getting to some of the people that but you still haven't discussed my bottom one. That is...
I must like them.
Yeah. King Gama, yeah, I put him fourth from the bottom. I think there's some good aspects to King Gama. He's missing for a lot of it, which isn't great. I do think his dialogue, like, poetically, is really good. But in terms of comedic potential, I do think he's got his limits. I only gave him a 12 for that. 6 for enjoyment, I gave him. 16 for music. I do think his music is really good. 14 for lyrics and dialogue. I only gave him a 12 for emotional and dramatic potential. Because I see him as a high-status character who is sure of himself, but he doesn't have the same chilled-out kind of humour as Sir Joseph Porter has. To me, it's like he has the illusion of having stakes when he doesn't really have any. And you don't really quite know who he is. He just seems like he's trying to be a bad guy, but it's not really obvious what he wants.
Why is he there? They're like they could very well have just not shown up.
Yeah, it seems the purpose of him is for there to be a patter guy in the show. And also, but if I'm thinking as intelligently as I can, it's to give an explanation to why Ida is the way she is. But I don't think that's what Gilbert intended. I think that's almost too... I'm putting a layer of intelligence onto Gilbert's writing of it that I don't think was actually there, because it was based on a play, wasn't it? Or it was based on a Tennyson play.
Well, the scene that is his scene, is his entrance scene, is, I think, one of the most understatedly, intelligently funny scenes that you can possibly have in the canon. With jokes that are... They're like... I mean, the blank verse helps this somehow. Where, like, they're not going to get huge laughs. They're just really funny.
I love the one about the precious stones.
And like precious stones, they derive their value from their scarcity.
And, I mean, I'm going to tell you that I get proper chills from... I'm going to find the line. Like, oh my... This whole dialogue where he says, Hilarion, Cyril, Florian, dressed as women? Is this indeed Hilarion? Why, you look handsome in your women's clothes. Stick to 'em. Men's attire becomes you not. And you, young ladies, will you please to pray King Hildebrand to set me free again? Hang on his neck and gaze into his eyes. He never could resist a pretty face. He's so horrid. I love this line. Are you a courtier? Come then, ply your trade. Tell me some lies. How do you like your king? Vile rumour says he's all but imbecile. No, that's not true. I just love that. I love how he goes up to someone and says, tell me some lies. Oh, he's very brave. He's totally, like, fearless. He's kind of fabulous, actually, King Gama, in a horrible misogynistic way.
Well, I gotta say, I think that Hildebrand is not great either. And
no.
I kind of don't mind seeing Hildebrand's stuffy court get torn to shreds by
it's kind of cool.
I like him. I gave him high marks for his lyrics and dialogue. And little less for music. Got 11 for music, but 16 for lyrics and dialogue. And the only reason music gets less is my classic reason that when you have 2-3 verse songs and the verses are identical musically, it does feel like a missed opportunity.
Yeah, his sarcastic song I just don't really rate, sadly. I don't really find it that interesting. I don't even find it, and I don't find his music, his songs, actually good at all. I don't really like either of his songs. I think they would both rate quite low for me. They don't... I wasn't even sure whether to include them in the patter songs category, because they're slow.
They're done slow often, I think, but they're also not like... Even if you give me your attention, it's usually never faster than...
Yeah.
It's not that pattery, but it's the patter. It's not lyric, right?
Yeah. I prefer that one to the second act one.
Oh, it's got that dynamite opening.
And I can
That's a good entrance.
I can tell in half.
I can tell a woman's age in half a minute, and I do.
Yeah. I like that bit.
The lyrics are incredibly clever of that.
Yeah.
Of the two songs.
Yeah. No, I love his lyrics and his dialogue, but. Yeah, music, I don't think he's done very well.
Yes. Must we till then in prison cell be thrust? You must. That seems unnecessarily severe. Good.
That has actually, because Princess Ida was the first GNS show I ever did. And I knew from the start that was one of my favourite lines. This seems unnecessarily severe.
What's funny about that moment is that's the continuation of a conversation, which is from 2 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole trio in between.
Yes, there is.
And then they're just like, okay, enough of the trio. Do we need to go to jail? Yeah.
That is really good.
That seems like a lot.
That seems unnecessarily severe.
So
that is really
good.
Good.
Yeah, he's again, we're in that last category where there's now very few of these. This guy I've done in a concert environment too, but I've never done it in a full show. And I think I would not want to because of how much free time I would have.
He is great, I think, but to me, I just didn't feel that he has absolutely no vulnerability whatsoever, and that is absolutely fine. Princess Sarah had no vulnerability at all, but I had loads of fun playing her. Like, you can still have loads of fun playing characters that are completely impervious to criticism. But
what are you talking about? King Gama?
Yeah.
No, he's mad because King Hildebrand is nice to him. And he
Yeah,
comes
but-
in and he's like, my daughter, I'm miserable.
Well, yeah, he's miserable, but he's not. There's no fear there. He's not vulnerable. He's just like, oh, I hate this.
Okay, here's one that I had a little higher and you brought down.
Oh, okay.
We're finally at one of those.
Yeah, this will probably be my bottom. If it's not my bottom, I don't know what you gave.
Oh, no, hang on. This isn't your bottom yet. This is the Duke of Plaza Toro,
Oh my god, okay.
which I have done and I enjoy very much.
Yes. I marked this one relatively low. This came to, for me, third from bottom. 16 for music. I don't particularly like small titles and orders musically, but everything else he does is great. He just doesn't really have too much solo stuff, so I only gave him a 16. 14 for lyrics and dialogue. 10 for emotion and dramatic potential. Again, he's just he's a bit like the judge. He's one of these wacky, high status, eccentric characters who's very funny. You know, I gave him, but you know, I only gave him a 12 for comic potential as well, because I don't think his lines are as overtly funny, because there's no tension in them. You don't really quite get who he is or what he wants. And the Gondoliers' humour is so involved, and a lot of it is based on clever stuff about companies and winding things up, and the language is just a bit too sophisticated sometimes. I think about equestrian exercise being impossible. It's just so wordy, and I think it's harder to make him funny. And having seen David Jones in many different roles, including some of my very favourite roles, I can really see this is a part that, like, I think David Jones did really, really well, but even seeing him do it, I'm like, wow, yeah, this is not an easy part, you know?
I think...
But you tell me about what you think.
When I played the Duke of Plaza Toro, I probably went the most cartoonish I'd ever go. Because I usually don't. I tend not to.
Yeah.
But I tended to think, like, this could be a little more outrageous. And without being unfair to the text. To still say, like, I think that the him thinking that Venice is just having an unusually wet season is really funny. But it's so hard for that to read. Like, it does take...
I just never get it. Because people always laugh.
Well, it's on account of he doesn't know that Venice is canals.
Oh.
He's a guy who rides horses.
Yeah.
And he goes to a city where he's expecting to ride his horse. But he gets there and he's like, why are all the streets covered in water? I guess they've had a wet season. Like, I guess it's been a rainy this couple months.
I never got that.
Can I try?
I didn't even get that joke.
At last we have arrived at the dialogue. This is the Ducal Palace, and it is here that the Grand Inquisitor resides. As a Castilian Hidalgo of 95 quarterings, I regret that I am unable to pay my state visit on a horse. As a Castilian Hidalgo of that description, I should have preferred to ride through the streets of Venice, but owing, I presume, to an unusually wet season, the streets are in such a condition that equestrian exercise is impracticable. No matter, where is our suite? Yeah, like, it's, to me, it's never gotten a laugh out of me, but it makes me go, like, that's a funny guy. What gets a laugh out of me is this line.
Oh, no, that's actually right.
Insuperable difficulties meet me at every turn.
That is good.
It's really good. So I like that. And there are other lines, too, that are like this is so great. Well, let us hope that the Grand Inquisitor is a deaf gentleman. A cornet de piston would be something. You don't happen to possess the accomplishment of tootling like a cornet de piston.
Alas, no, your grace. But I can imitate a farmyard.
I don't see how that would help us. I don't see how we could bring it in. It's very good.
It's good.
It's very good.
I don't see that I could help us. I don't see how we could bring it in. I'm just really genuine.
Set me up with one more. This is the other one.
Yeah.
Use one of your lines.
Yeah. Married to the infant son of the King of Barataria. Was I consulted? And it was a most unpardonable liberty.
Consider his extreme youth and forgive him.
That is good, yeah.
It's really
Yeah, no, you're right. It's just, it's not so obviously funny. I think because for some reason, he does not get that star treatment. And so you're not focused in on him as a person to be watching, and so he just falls under the radar. That's the issue. But he's not given the same treatment as some of the bigger parts.
Because Grossmith just left.
Yeah.
And it
that's
changed
why.
everything.
Yeah.
So having Wyatt in the role meant that it was this egalitarian, equal status among the characters vibe.
Yeah, and that's also probably why Rudolph wasn't as good. Utopia's a bit different. Like, Utopia's a weird one for paterolles. But, yeah, certainly with the Gondoliers and the Grand Duke, I think that was the case. They just stopped assuming that the pater person would be the star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's completely true.
Yeah.
Now, he does have that problem, like, he disappears for much of the show, but I do think his potential is very high. And I especially enjoyed the Act 2 sequence. I always loved playing. And I especially loved the dialogue before the gavotte.
You see, that was, for me, one of the weakest points in the canon. And I would still say that I'm not entirely convinced to enjoy it. I would say I enjoy it more than I did, but you've still not put it, even with what because Will essentially directed the sequence when I directed it last summer, because I was in it.
Did I have you smell an armpit?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I still don't really rate it. I rate it a little bit more, but just when you consider the other things that GNS do, I still don't see it as being up there. I really don't.
I think it's a sequence where I just need to go for unabashed silliness, and that the Duke and Duchess are fun-loving, crazed weirdos.
Yeah.
In a way that...
And the audience always seem to really love that section. That's one part of the canon where I feel very out of step with the rest of the GNS community, because I just don't really find the Duke and Duchess to be engaging characters, but people seem to laugh at literally everything they say.
People laugh, but I think that a lot of other directors and actors and performers don't rate that sequence. I think the audiences may like it. I mean, I've given the Duke of Plaza Toro a very high score for enjoyment. Playing his part was a really wonderful time.
Even though he's missing for a lot of it. You don't really get like a full kind of character arc.
Do you know, in this particular production, it was a really nice break, because I got to take off my costume and just be in an undershirt and pants and sit outside.
That's nice. Actually, it's fun when you can do that. Yeah.
No one's allowed to know that I wear socks.
Okay, so this one is number 9. Because this was previously a draw that was tied for 8, but we've decided that the character we've just been talking about is better. So this character is number 9. And it is... Phantis from Utopia Limited. I think this is the correct place for him in regard to the person in 8th place. Yes. I think this is correct. So, Phantis is one of the 2 characters, and you'll never guess the other one, that I gave a 20 to for music. I think they have the best music out of all the paterolles, Scaphio and Phantis.
It's almost the most orchestrally interesting. We just did it the last 2 days, and having gotten to conduct it the last couple days, I'm just like, all their numbers are like, a lot of the pattern numbers as a conductor are like just making sure that everything lines up. They're not like, ooh, and then you do this and you do this, and it's kind of quite beautiful.
Because their thoughts and actions are written into the music, and to get to do that, like, you can make these the most physically interesting characters. And we're talking about Phantis now, but a lot of what I say now will also apply to Scaphio. But Phantis has come below Scaphio for me, for the reason that I believe that there are points where Scaphio is given the kind of primary position, and Phantis is more of a second in command. And he has... And he doesn't have the same stakes when it comes to Princess Sarah. And we will talk about that more when we talk about Scaphio, but that's the reason Phantis comes below Scaphio for me, because he has a little bit less emotional material. And so I've given him a slightly lower score for that. I gave him a 15 for lyrics and dialogue. I think the dialogue isn't great, but I think the lyrics are incredible. I love his lyrics. But I only gave him a 14 for emotional and dramatic potential. Phantis. And a 15 for comic potential.
Scaphio is so good, and Phantis is just a slightly less good. Like,
yeah,
shade of that. This is the last role on the list we'll see that I've not done. And I guess technically this is the only one I've like not done in any way, because I have been Scaphio.
Yeah.
I've never done a Phantis. And, if I had a choice, I'd always pick Scaphio.
Yeah, me too. I would always pick Scaphio over Phantis to do. But having said that, when we read through one of the Scaphio and Phantis scenes yesterday, I completely lost it at one of your lines as Phantis. Like that.
Yes. She's an attractive girl.
Because after Scaphio has this whole incredible speech about how, like, oh, she's just perfectly lovely. She's just entrancing. And Scaphio is completely besotted instantly, and Phantis just suddenly is a bit deflated. And that to me is really, really funny. So that is one moment where Phantis really gets to be funny in a way that Scaphio never is. But so I do love that moment. But I absolutely love these guys, and I think I'm saving most of this speech about how much I love them for when I talk about Scaphio. But
that's fair. I think.
But Phantis, I do also really, really like. But I'd always pick Scaphio over Phantis.
Yeah, I've basically all my marks are like the same. Hold on, this is an error. For some reason, Phantis has one more music point than Scaphio.
Oh, what? Why?
Because I'm a clumsy person.
There is a reason I gave Scaphio and Phantis 20s for music. I do think that if you're a person who is performing these operas because you love to sing and you love good music and you love rhythm and you love doing things with your bodies, and you love kind of doing impulses on certain musical phrases, there is so much to work with in these parts in a way that there isn't actually even close to as much in any of the other parts. Like these two get the best music to work with. Not necessarily the best music to sing, but the best music to work with physically.
Yeah, they have another one of like those so bad I love it bits. Bum 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 bum. You best take care. Please recollect we have not been consulted.
Yeah, their interjections in the Act 1 finale are so bad. But like it's kind of musically bad. But actually, if you were to get them really dead on and do a really dramatic lighting change, that would be breathtaking. You know, if you were to get that completely dead on and really clean, and just have it being a complete aside and flipping back and lights and everything just working really neatly, that would be utterly amazing. But you have to get it really good, otherwise it's bad. We are now moving on to
9.
We're now moving on to number 9. And
it's between, sort of a fussy thing we're gonna have to get into, but it's between Phantis and JWW.
What?
It's like
those two parts could not be. Well, actually,
right.
I was they could not be more different. Maybe that's not true. Actually, John Wellington Wells is actually my second to bottom. I mean, he actually tied with Mercury, but I would put him higher than Mercury. The thing is, I was actually upset that Wells came so low on my list because I do think he has tremendous potential. But when I force myself to really look at the material you're working with, it's pretty bad material. His song is a list. Like, yeah, it's a showpiece and it's fabulous as a performer, but it's just, you're a clown. And great. You're a clown, but without any of the nuance that Jack Point has. Unless you want to put it on. You mean you can tell me more. But then his section with Lady Xiangxue is just so bad musically. And even lyrically. I just hate it. And it totally goes against him as a character. Like, why does he have to say that this person is young? Like why does he have to like crush her like that? I mean, I guess Gilbert didn't think too deeply into it, but I think this part would be really good with your version of it, where actually he might not even be magic at all, and he's just flying by the seat of his pants, and everything he does is a completely like in the moment decision, and he is just a salesman, and he sells this potion to Alexis, and it's only in the Act 1 finale where he actually realizes it works. And then if you had the Armani scene in later, then he realizes, oh, it's because I had Armani's like helping me the whole time, and I didn't even know that I was really magic. And then you can get like a real emotional journey with him. But God, it's a lot of work and a lot of thought. So maybe in that version, he would have come way higher on my list. But he says music isn't great. I gave him a 14 for music, 13 for lyrics and dialogue. His lyrics and dialogue are not great, sadly. Okay, actually, I gave him only an 11 for emotional and dramatic potential. I should have given him way higher. Because actually, I've just convinced myself with that speech that he should be higher. But comedic, 13, But then, the more frightened he is, the funnier that would be. But it still wouldn't even get close to the territory of some other characters that we haven't talked about yet. But yeah, I should have given him maybe like 6 or 7 more points for emotional and dramatic potential.
I mean, I feel like on a technicality, Wells has to beat Phantis because Phantis is one of a duo.
Yes, exactly. And I feel like I feel like now, even though I place Phantis way above John Wellington Wells, I've actually now talked myself into him being a much better character. Like, what do you think about what I just said?
I'm with you. I now think our Monet scene is canon. So, like, I can't see it. Now that I've said it.
I guess I was judging it without the Armani scene, but if that is put in, you get so much more of his character.
Oh, sure. When I had my fellow Brian do it, my buddy Brian, who played it for me in New York, and I wrote the scene for him and I to sing. And the way it went, from the Tag is Your Number still is a little fuzzy. You can't totally rescue it. But the way that transitioned into A Hideous Doom, it was like... And then we played it like you described, that he accidentally stumbled upon the Necronomicon, basically.
Yeah.
And that he realized he's messed everything up. And then at the end, he's still punished for it. And it's just this incredibly dark thing.
I think this is the version of the Sorcerer that I really, really want to do.
Yeah, it's good. We had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, now that Sorcerer is the one that is the main one that since doing these videos, I'm like, oh God, I really want to do that again. When I did this 6 years ago, I was an idiot.
No, but we did it in 2 minutes.
Yeah, and I mean, I wasn't an idiot. I still had some really good ideas, but there was so much I hadn't thought about.
It was a very silly version.
Yeah, there was so many things I hadn't even considered. And it was deliberately not much rehearsed. It was kind of a quickly rehearsed.
I'm with you. I mean, that was the only time I've done Wells as a production. Okay. So I'd like to do that again. But I think he's... I mean, I rate his music quite highly.
Really?
I do think the number is the showpiece that it is, but the thing is, it's not a showpiece for the actor as much as it's not only a showpiece for the actor, it's also a showpiece for the character as a salesman. So it has a dramatic purpose in being a list, in a way that, like, listing your credentials to people that are just like, now that I've introduced myself, I should like to have some idea of what's going on, is not the same thing as, like, I'm going to tell you what I can do. Now, of course, that doesn't pay off any because they just want the one item and they don't need the rest of the stuff. I've often remarked that I almost wish there was a way that he enters with the song, as opposed to, you are a sorcerer. He's like, yes, we practice necromancy and all its branches, and this whole long speech, and then name of John Wellington Wells. I mean, I think the speech is really good.
How would you play, like, if I were to tell you that, like, if I were to say to you as a director, I would like you to play John Wellington Wells with the same stakes as Jack Point. And, like, with the same kind of journey. With the same kind of emotional journey. And make it so that he is absolutely desperate for money, that he is starving and really, really needs this deal. And like, this is incredibly important to him. And his whole song is an absolute desperate cry for help, but in the guise of like, I'm really funny, I'm really funny.
Sure. I've always been so confident.
That would be good.
So it's my favorite.
Can you imagine if the stakes were super high in that song?
Yeah, I can see it.
Ooh.
It's my favorite patter song to sing.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, wow, really?
What was this? I mean...
Not Private Buffoon or anything?
It's the show-off part. It's the how many words can we sing, how fast can we
Yeah.
sing? But, because I have to do it fast enough that I can do the bridge in one breath each time.
Yeah.
But it's quick. But
Yeah.
it's interesting to think about it as having those stakes because he goes so fast that they don't have a chance to answer.
But exactly. It's
like,
because he is so in his own, like, I need to sell space. And he is so deferential to their authority. And that makes Alexis look even worse, which is a good thing.
So it finishes. Simmery, simmery, so thou wouldst be a jester, eh? So it's like that.
Yeah. It's like, please, you're going to buy something? And then when they actually want to buy something, it's, okay, and then you are so excited about doing your little Sprites of Earth and their showpiece, and that's when you've got like Hercules or your little helpers helping you, who are like similarly poor and desperate to, like pretend like woo, you know. Mm-hmm. And, oh my god!
Yes,
that would be so
that was
good.
part of the concept, was that the first incantation is fake, and the second incantation in Act 2 is the actual horror show.
I do love this character, and I think I was wrong to place him low. And I think it was because I wasn't being true to myself in a way. If you add in that extra element of the Aramani scene and you actually add in stakes for him, which I'd not considered until 10 minutes ago, and that really makes him so much better.
Number 7 is...
Yeah?
Major General Stanley.
Good, okay, because he's my number 10. And that means that I feel like we have placed the same.
We're pretty from here on out. We pretty much everybody left. We have up top.
That's good. Yeah.
And I have Major General a little higher than you, but
what I love about Major General Stanley, again, it's the fact that his stakes are so low. That's what's so interesting. He's a very high status character. I only gave him an 11 for emotional and dramatic stakes. But he does get high. He gets 15 for lyrics and dialogue. The orphan scene, I think, is hilarious. And I actually do like his opening of the Act 2 scene with Frederick and Mabel. His music I gave a 16 to, because I think Sighing Softly is absolutely beautiful. And his standard song he sings is good, but I think I've just heard it so many times that I never really want to hear that song. And I'm never really that excited about that song coming up because it's just the one you hear constantly. So I might just be a bit fatigued by the Major General song. But I appreciate that it is good musically. And he gets some amazing music in the Act 1 finale. So he's a great guy. 16 for comedic potential, though. I don't think he's maybe quite as funny as some of the others because he's still a high status character. But I actually put him below Sir Joseph Porter. But I'm happy that he's ended up above him. That's great because I'm going to appreciate your opinion. I know I will. But what I love about him is the fact that he doesn't actually care about what's happening. He's like, oh well, we can't have that. So tell me who you are, sir. He's just really his daughters have all been kidnapped.
I've never considered that transition.
Actually bodily kidnapped. And he comes and it's like, oh no, well, no, this won't do. Tell me.
Dear me, you mustn't do that.
Yeah, dear me.
I say, this is a picturesque uniform.
Yeah, it's just... But I find that so stupid. That is so topsy-turvy and hilarious. So that is the reason I love him, but it has meant he's got quite a low mark, because I wouldn't want to see him be actually worried about his daughters, because for me that would be such a downer. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't want that. So I'm glad he doesn't care. But yeah, anyway, you tell me your thoughts based on what I've just said.
Uh, he's got a very high rating for me for enjoyment. It's interesting
Yeah.
because
I think I gave him quite a high mark
he's
for
a
that.
character
Oh, a
that like
7.
I remember John Reed gave him up in about 1968, and when there's a recording from that year, and you could tell he's like checked out. He's
Oh,
like
wow. Oh,
he's
God.
like, this isn't a fun part for me.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I kind of get it in some ways, but I've gotten to play him twice in Harrogate and in New York.
Yeah.
And I really have a lot of fun. Like
Yeah.
I think that I can definitely see it was one of the ones that in New York made this show a little less stressful to be in because I had I had a lot of time to
Yeah.
decompress.
Oh, tell me about when you played in the Savoynet and you almost like didn't make it on stage in time. That is a crazy story.
Well, the costume we had was very complicated, and I was completely in costume at the top of the show, and of course I have 12 numbers to wait, and it's like we're pretty much at what ought we to do, and I'm like, I think I have time to use the loo. And I go to use the loo, and I have to undo the whole thing just to make any of it happen. And then I just hear, beautifully blue sky. I'm like, good, okay, there's beautifully blue the sky, and then there's stay we mustn't lose sense, and then there's hold monsters. And then I'm on. And I'm like half dressed. And I'm like,
Where were you when you heard Hold Monsters?
by the time the whole monsters happened, I was not yet in the wing.
Oh my God.
So by the time I remember I was running up the stairs in Harrogate, putting my gloves on. The glove went on. Here, there's the rostra in the back. Here's the stage. The glove on. Yes, I am a major general. I could not have been any later.
Oh, wow.
At all.
That gives me such nausea to think. I was like, oh God, I can't imagine that fear that must have just gone through you.
But you know what?
Yeah.
I was so nervous about the part. I was so nervous about coming on and doing that song that I didn't even think about it because
Wow.
I had to.
Oh my God.
I didn't that feeling when you're standing in the wing, going.
Yeah.
I didn't even bother with that. I skipped it. It's fun. It's just the moment of can I get on stage.
Wow.
So the adrenaline was very high.
God.
It was good. I liked it.
But I thought you sang that really well. That's actually on YouTube. You can just watch that on YouTube, can't you?
It's good. And also, so is the New York production. So we can like that.
Yeah.
The one we did in New York, where we experimented with something about this song that I was like, let me try this. No pauses.
Oh, I love that.
Because that song could easily be 4.5 minutes long. There's
yeah.
a lot of business,
Yeah.
stop. And I think a lot of that is that's what we've heard. So that's what we're going to do. And I think that echo chamber can be a bit challenging. So sometimes it's really interesting to do when you're doing a smaller orchestra or a piano production to bare bonesify your reading of the text.
Yeah.
Just be like, well, if I had never heard this before, how would I interpret this text?
Yeah.
So thinking about that a little bit, or even being a bit radical with choices, is kind of fun. I think his music is excellent, and his text is too. Of course, I do think.
What's your favourite scene that he's in?
Frederick, in this chapel are ancestors. You cannot deny that. With the estate of which the chapel and its contents. I don't know whose ancestors they were, but I know whose ancestors they are. It's all of that. That gets me. That's so funny. And now that I have introduced myself, it's so funny.
Yeah.
I mean...
Have a go.
And now that I have introduced myself, I should like to have some idea of what's going on.
Oh, Papa! Permit me, I'll explain in 2 words. We propose to marry your daughters.
Dear me.
Against our wills, Papa, against our wills.
Oh, but you mustn't do that. May I ask, this is a picturesque uniform, but I'm not familiar with it. What are you?
We are all single gentlemen.
Yes, I gathered that. Anything else?
Nothing else.
Papa, don't believe them. They are pirates. The famous pirates of Penzance.
The pirates of Penzance, I have often heard of them.
All except this gentleman who was a pirate once, but who is out of his indentures today and intends to leave a blameless life evermore.
But wait a bit. I object to pirates as sons-in-law.
We object to Major Generals as fathers-in-law. But we waive that point. We do not press it. We look over it.
Huh, an idea. And do you mean to say that you would deliberately rob me of these, the sole remaining props of my old age, and leave me to go through the remainder of my life unfriended, unprotected, and alone?
Well, yes, that's the idea.
Tell me, have you ever known what it is to be an orphan?
Oh, dash it all! Here we are again!
I ask you, have you ever known what it is to be an orphan?
Orphan.
Yes, orphan. Have you ever known what it is to be one?
I say, orphan. Orphan, orphan, orphan.
I don't think we quite understand one another. I ask you, have you ever known what it is to be an orphan? And you say, orphan, as I understand you, you are merely repeating the word orphan to show that you understand me.
I didn't repeat the word orphan.
Pardon me, you did indeed.
I only repeated it once.
True, but you repeated it.
But not orphan.
Stop. I think I see where we are getting confused. When you said orphan, did you mean orphan, a person who has lost his parents? Or orphan frequently?
Ah, I beg pardon. I see what you mean. Frequently.
Ah, you said orphan frequently.
No, only once.
Exactly, you said orphan frequently, only once.
I love that scene.
It's a good scene.
I love that scene so much. Yeah, he's great. But he is... I just think when it comes to ones we haven't talked about yet, there's just going to be ones I get more excited about. But I do really love Major General.
He's like, as far as the ones that feel more like a cameo,
yes.
he's as high as they get for me.
Yeah.
And I think that like the return on investment for this character is still very good.
Yeah.
Because every time you're on, you are in charge and you're important, and what you have to do is fun. I think the difference with Sir Joseph is that the material, it's a kind of similar in structure, but the material itself isn't as strong.
I agree now. I hadn't realised, writing this list, actually how little music Sir Joseph had. He gives the impression of having more than he does, but actually, I think Major General Stanley is better. So this list is working out really well for me. I'm actually been happy so far with everyone's position.
Sure.
So,
yeah, like you originally had Sir Joe higher, but I think that the balance we're agreeing.
I was even happy with how far up Wells ended up being.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
I think this all worked out. So we're now on to number 6, and my top 6 have not been discussed yet, so I'm really happy with the way this is working out. So, but let's see if they're in the same order that I've got. Probably not.
Yes, considering my original list, this could get fudged. My top 5 haven't been discussed.
Okay.
So the next one we're going to discuss, I have a 10. But I think I probably, especially after this last weekend,
Okay.
would have moved higher.
Right. So who is number 6?
Number 6 is Scaphio.
Yeah, and he's my number 6. So that feels right for me. It feels right for him to be high, but not super high. Because for me, Scaphio actually has the best music, with Phantis. And I don't really care that he's in a duo. I think the fact he's in a duo is what makes them so musically interesting. And that trio that I thought was bad, Will had such a good concept for it, and it was taken at such a lick, it was taken at such a good speed, that I actually totally changed my opinion of it. And it was actually really good.
The
So
Act
now
2 trio, when you think that when banded in unity.
yes, there is not a single bit of music that Scaphio and Phantis have that is like below an 18 for me. Every single scrap of material they have, music-wise, I think is really strong, incredibly strong.
I mean, if I should die and he should live to this young officer, I give a heart so young and sensitive and all the predilections. If he should live
Love
and not
that.
to die. It's so wild. Yeah, Scaphio is the one I got to do with Blue Hill.
Yeah,
They
of course,
cut Tarara and they cut the love.
They cut the best bit of it, though.
So the 2 moments
Yeah.
that I would have sung in harmony were gone. It's kind of a shame.
Lyrics and dialogue I only gave a 16 to, because I do appreciate that while his lyrics are pretty much perfect to me, apart from that, I didn't like the unruffled cheerfulness, remorselessness bit. But apart from that, I honestly think that all the lyrics are really good now. Even that temerity bit, I didn't hate as much as I thought I would when I saw you three doing it.
It's very interesting how that became like a weird little pick-me-up showstopper after the drawing room.
Yes!
Because in a way, the way that felt is it felt like with Fury Deep We Burn was like the little, like, it just the door turning to a new scene. Then we had this really funny scene of like, gentlemen, your complaints, and this little button of it, and it flew right into Wily Brain. Like that whole
yeah. That next scene was dynamite. That was so
very
good.
strong. And the stakes of the show feel so high for that, like, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Which I loved. And yeah, like, the fact that number got one of the biggest hands of the night was, I think, really cool.
And just remember, I mean, there was such a great person playing Scaphio. Like, he was really good. He blew my mind. And the bit where he's talking about just having met Zara, I mean, that has so much emotional, dramatic, and comedic potential. That scene, to me, would get 10s for like all of those categories. And that so rarely happens, that you find a scene or a character that has the very pinnacle of both emotion and dramatics. But the reason I didn't give him a higher mark is because it doesn't last the whole opera, it's just for that scene. But I mean, that is a great scene. And they were loving it last night. That the audience were shrieking with laughter all the way through that scene where he was like, oh, just look at her shoulders, her this, her that. They loved that. And I think that is what brings Scaphio above Phantis to me. That Scaphio just gets to do a bit more, and he also gets that amazing speech at the end. A fico for these boons, say I.
Yeah, which I think that in 2 productions before that we did, the Blue Hill one and then the one that I emodied for Savoynet, that speech was split up into two guys. And I think that, like, it is more on purpose that it's that way. So it was W.H. Denny who played Scaphio, who by that point had done Donal and Wilfred.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of like a sort of a star to fill. Like, he had kind of done the parts that the Barrington track would later do. People like Ken Sanford would play Wilfred and Donal, but then Ken Sanford went on to do
Who played Phantis?
Yeah, it's John LaHaye.
What was he in before? I wonder if the Scaphio and Phantis knew each other.
He had done...
Like, if they'd been in a show before. Like, was he in Gondoliers?
He was in the touring company, playing the powder parts.
Oh, okay. So he was in, like, the B company or something.
Yeah, he was in one of the support companies.
Okay.
But I'm not getting... This seems to be...
Yeah.
He was
But Denny was a proper star.
I mean, by that point,
because he just played Donal, and Donal is really funny. So I guess, because he has really good dialogue, so I guess that Gilbert had seen from that, oh, we've got a guy here who's really funny and good at dialogue. And you can tell by the pictures of him as Donal that he was hilarious. Like, you know that he was hilarious. What else did I give him? I gave Scaphio an 8 for enjoyment. But really, I mean, I could have given him higher. But I think he's in the right place. I definitely wouldn't want to see any of the parts below him.
I got you.
But so this is the absolute top place I think he can go. Otherwise, it feels like we're inflating him beyond what he's truly capable of. But I do think that this part does have, because Utopia Limited has not been as explored, and there's not really any one way of playing this character, any standard way of playing him. He has, in some ways, more potential than any of them, and there's maybe some ways of playing this character that we haven't even considered yet. And that is really exciting.
That's what I discovered this past weekend, is that you and I were doing things, other actors in the show were doing things that we were like, no one's ever done it like this before. Because
there's no standard way of playing these characters. Like, we don't have like a typical Major General to fall back on with all his jokes and pausing at this point of the music and there being a convention to like ring a bell at this point in the bell trio or like go off stage and get on a life vest. Like, there's no tradition in place. All you've got with Utopia is the script, and that makes people scared because they don't have the standard things to do to fall back on. They have to do all the work. Whereas for like Pirates and PINAFORE, there's so much stuff that is already standard But if you're a director in a company who's maybe not so experienced, Utopia would be a bad one to do, because I really think it's important to learn how the others were treated and then to try and apply that to Utopia. But it would be, I would say, a little foolish for anyone to do Utopia who has not really, really thought about the text and the music.
We, as an opera company, my company, Utopia Opera, which is named after this show, took 12 years to do it.
Yeah.
I was afraid of doing it, and it wasn't until I thought about doing it in this concert semi-staged version that I was like, I could see a way that we can do this without needing some of the opulence and not needing to be that fussy, and just get who are the best people I can get. I got Rachel to come over. Rachel was
And it's also one where, so for Bear Theatre, there's only two we haven't done now, and that's Utopia, because we're about to do PINAFORE. That'll be Utopia and Ida. And I would say that Ida is the one that I'm placing the most weight on for, I really, really want to examine so carefully exactly how I'm going to do it and put, more thought than anyone has ever put into any show. And put that into Princess Ida. But Utopia is a close second on that list for me. The other ones, I was happy to just try something and just experiment. And I didn't feel very high stakes to put out this life-changing, amazing version of it. But with Utopia and Grand Duke and Ida, those are the three that I'm I have to completely nail this. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I shouldn't try.
Well, you completely nailed Grand Duke.
I did, but the thing is, I still think that I could make that better. And I really want the chance to actually direct an amateur production of the Grand Duke, because then I'll have more people. That's what I want to do. I want to do an amateur production.
I gotta tell you.
But then the trouble is,
good.
all the amateur companies in the UK right now are doing one's just done the Grand Duke, and then I'm in one. So if any amateur companies in the UK want me to direct a Grand Duke for them, please let me know if it's not far from London. I would love to come and do that. I would really love that, because I'd just like to have the chance to direct a lot of people in that show and apply the vision I had to my 8-person show to an actual full cast. I would really love that. So hit me up. I would really, really like that. We were talking about Scaphio. I think we finished talking about Scaphio, really, haven't we? I love these two roles, but there's a certain magic that they don't quite have. They don't quite have that same reality and true nuance than the people above them have.
No, but like the Duke of Plaza Toro, they support the piece.
Yeah.
I definitely felt like when I was doing the scene yesterday with the King and Scaphio and Phantis are yelling at me after With Fury Deep We Burn, I had this feeling thinking from the audience going, oh yeah, these guys. Like a lot of these shows that are a little more Grand Duke, Utopia, and Gondolier specifically are a little more okay, yeah, this guy's back.
Yeah.
And not oh, these are the 4 or 5 people I'm focused on. Even shows like Mikado, it doesn't feel like I'm kind of looking at 3 people in that. Even the parts people love in that, the baritone, you're sort of not paying too much attention.
Yeah.
But I kind of think everybody, Utopia is such a brave show to just be okay, we have this great high stakes trio, and then Dromley and Goldberry walk on. Just start talking about how the drawing room went. It's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
So good. So we are now moving on to the top 5. And what's really interesting about this top 5, I was just thinking about it just now, is that with the possible exception of one of them, but I think even this is open to interpretation, all of these characters are terrified of losing something. And everything they say is kind of tainted by the thing they want the most or value the most is under threat. And in a lot of these cases, is actually life and death. And I just love that. These characters I think they're all cowards. So we had a tie at number 4 or 5, and the way that tie has worked out, we think, is that number 5 is Bunthorne. And so we're now going to talk about Bunthorne, because we've actually already talked about the one which we think is number 4. But let's see if we change our minds. So, number 5 is Bunthorne.
I think one reason this was an easy decision for me,
Yeah.
in terms of how this appeared on my own ranking, my top 5 is our top 5. Like, it's so that's true.
Yeah.
And so is your. We all have the same top 5. Everyone has the same top 5, right? But I did Robin and then Bunthorne back to back, and Bunthorne after Robin.
But I am actually.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
To clarify, I played them back to back.
Right. Okay.
And playing Bunthorne after playing Robin, I was like, oh, it's just like this isn't like I'm not getting the same thing out of it.
I totally get that, and I actually think that there is it. Even though I'm very, very happy that Scaphio is beneath Bunthorne, I do think that is also a big divide. I am actually thinking now that there is a bit of air between Bunthorne and those top 4.
That's how I feel.
And I feel that now after you said that about Robin. I'd not really considered that about Robin. I'm still not totally sold on the Lord Chancellor, so you're going to have to help me out with that one. But Bunthorne. So, I think Bunthorne has pretty good music. I gave him a 17. I gave him a 20 for his lyrics and dialogue, and I wonder if that was too generous. Because I only gave 2 characters a 20 for lyrics.
It's patience, though.
I absolutely love his aria. His patter song. I think that is so relevant. I gave Bunthorne an 18 for comedic potential. I don't think... Just because he's all rather one note... and the stakes aren't terribly high for him, I do think that means he can't quite reach that pinnacle of 20. And I only gave him a 15 for emotional and dramatic potential. Because I do think that the moment of Bunthorne that gives me chills are when he, is when we had him, throwing the tickets in the air.
Take a dozen.
Take a dozen, when Patience comes back. That's the moment where you really feel... He is at the very pinnacle of earthly joy. I don't really get who he truly is. He's not really being his authentic self in public at any other point. And I think that because he is putting on a mask, that does make him very funny. But you do lose a bit in emotional and dramatic complexity. But you do get to see his anger a lot and his narcissism. And you do kind of get to see him as a human. You see that he's jealous and bitter, but you still like him. He's still very likable.
What works about this show is that he loses, and you're fine with it.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
I find that this, some of this is so, he is in such a bad mood through all of Act 2.
He's so salty.
So salty. But his desire for admiration doesn't need to be explained. It's just in the text.
Yeah.
He's just like, I just need to be admired. To a point that he completely resents Patience in Act 2.
Yeah.
He's just like, He's like, I don't even love you. He's like, she says, if you could love 2 people at once, and he's like, oh, can't you though? It's like, he just
hates her in the second half. That's the thing. He completely goes off her. So yeah, I do think this character does lack in stakes and emotional complexity. He's just such a selfish character that in a very lovable way, in a very fun way that
it's definitely one where like you're talking about with Robin, that when I played it, I've leavened it.
Yeah. Okay.
I've always. You never want to be like me. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to just be completely despicable.
I really ship him and Lady Jane. But I also appreciate the comedy of her just going to the Duke as well. That is such a funny subversion. After her worship of him for the whole opera, she's like, Duke! And that's the script.
I love it. That's the thing where the script wins. Even no matter what you think should happen, yes. The script wins.
Yeah.
And the script says she leaves.
But I gave Bunthorne a 10 out of 10 for enjoyment. I think he is one that, I will tell you that, I have seen Simon Butterus in so many shows, but I remember when we went to see him in Patience in 2021, I was pretty much crying with laughter the entire time he was speaking. I was like, I am having so much fun. And I don't think I can't remember another time where I've had that much fun watching one person do one role. Just be constantly in hysterics. I really enjoyed it.
When I was in high school, I got a couple of my friends into GNS, and one of them was really taken with Gama, and the other one was really taken with Bunthorne.
Yeah.
And to the point they were like, this guy's the funniest guy who's ever lived. So, like, the appeal of Bunthorne is very high. Yeah. I had to say, I have to play him again because I've done Grosvenor in the interim. Yeah. With you, against you, and that thing. And I had so much fun, and maybe, again, I'm biased there. That was one, if you don't know this, or I won an award for best gendered performer.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot of fun to, like, do a scene with you. Our scene is so good.
Oh my god, that was so good.
We had so much fun. I don't know if I need to do. I was like, I don't know if I need to do Bunthorne. Like, that was a show.
No, you need to do Bunthorne again.
Yeah, I just keep alternating.
Yeah, I really want to see you do Bunthorne.
Nah, that'd be nice. But I think it's cool to go the other side. So, like,
yeah, oh, absolutely. That's why I am so thrilled to be playing Lisa right now, because occasionally I think to myself, oh, it would be nice to do the Mad scene again. Of course, that's my favourite song to do, and I love Julia, but oh my god, but now next time I play Julia, I'm going to have such, like, a different insight on how to direct Lisa, because I've now played Lisa and I understand her potential in a way I didn't before.
Yeah.
And that's really going to help me in my next show.
Think of it this way. Really you and I have played the lead roles in the Grand Duke more than anyone alive.
Probably.
Like, it's...
I mean, definitely professionally.
Yeah.
Because we did 12 professional performances in our characters, and I also did 3 more as Julia for another show and 1 more for
You've done it already.
I have played Julia in 16 performances, and 12 of those were professional.
And with us being that cooked, it benefits us to go on the other burner for a little bit.
Yeah. So I think that, circling back to Bunthorne, I think that will be... Your Bunthorne will now be so much better from having played Grosvenor. There is maybe some unseen category where Bunthorne comes top, and that is just sheer enjoyment that a part can give to the audience. Like honestly,
iconic status.
He is so iconic, but I'm really happy with him being in 5th place still. But I do think there is an invisible category where he just beats them all, because honestly, he is just absolutely fabulous from start to finish and so enjoyable.
He's a character that is on those... we see him at the festival, the silhouettes.
Yes, he's
one of those
so
characters
well
that you can just see as a silhouette, you know who it is.
Yeah. And number 4, we have decided, is Robin Oakapple from RUDDIGORE, after a lengthy discussion.
When I did Robin for Blue Hill Troop, I had recently done a few Jack Points. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't know. I think Robin's Act 2 felt more emotionally, like, cathartic and draining and impactful in how deep the threat felt. It doesn't have quite the same denouement.
I think the trouble is with Robin is that I love him as a character, and he is so funny. But a lot of why he's funny is because he does have narcissistic qualities. That line... You'll be able to do this better than me, but because I don't know if I'm saying it right, but you have no idea what a poor opinion I have of myself and how little I deserve it.
Okay.
That I absolutely love that line, and I think it makes him likable as a comic character, but it's not relatable to people who don't really have very narcissistic qualities. And it's fun to see a character with a little bit of a dark side, but I do think you lose a little bit of empathy for him when he's going through it in the ghost scene. I think you do get a little bit of pleasure for seeing Robin kind of get punished.
I gotta tell you, when I was 23 when I did it.
Right.
In this big theater with a huge set and the whole thing. And it felt very easy to be liked.
Okay.
And I came on, I remember coming on. This is now we talk about entrances. The entrance for this is Rose was downstage.
Oh, Robin's
on a bench.
got a very bad initial kind of entrance, but that perhaps you can convince me of.
So she's there. She has a line first about as Dame Hannah leaves. She was downstage. I was up the steps, like 40 steps high, and I just show up and I see her there, and I'm like, oh. And there was like this like aw laugh, a laugh that said aw. for me just by showing up. It was just like, I like him. Doing it as like a very young, fresh-faced little guy, saying like, you have no
Yeah,
idea
he's just
what a
really
poor
awkward. Yeah,
opinion I have of myself and how little I deserve it. Like I know I have good qualities, but it's just not working out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
No, I haven't really thought about that, yeah.
Little did the good soul think, when she breathed the hallowed name of Robin, that he would do even as well as another. But he resembleth all the youths in this village, and that he is unduly bashful in my presence, and, lo, it is hard to bring him to the point. But soft, he is here.
Mistress Rose,
Master Robin.
I wished to say that it is fine,
It is passing fine.
but we do want rain.
Aye, sorely. Is that all?
That is all.
Good day, Master Robin.
Good day, Mistress Rose.
I
Beg
beg
pardon.
Oh. You're about to say.
I would fain consult you.
Truly?
It is about a friend.
Oh, in truth, I have a friend myself.
Indeed. I mean, of course.
And I would fain consult you
About him?
about her.
Let us consult one another.
Oh, you see, that's cute. You see, like, if you had it where he really was just a very, very insecure guy, that suddenly gives the ghost scene a lot more of an impact. Almost like he's a very insecure guy that's, like, dug a really big hole for himself. And he's doing it. Actually, yeah, because that's the point. Because I find that I lose a bit of empathy for Robin because of what he's done to Despard. But I never stop to think that that is just the level of his fear. Because he is so scared of the ghost situation.
But
That is why he faked his death. So that was so scary to him that it completely overrode all brotherly affection. And wow, these characters are so good.
So-
Actually, this is a really good.
so when
Yeah.
when we had it, this is a computer. When
Yeah.
when we the tragedy of the end of that act
Yeah.
was very powerfully felt while I was in it. I had like it was very interesting because when I did Jack Point and the Act 1 finale, it's like this huge explosive moment for everybody.
Yeah.
But when you do Robin, it's like it's kind of really just for you, and like Rose is maybe kind of half in it. And I could put a nice picture here of like the final image of that act, and that feeling of just being like I got put into Despard's cape like right away, and I'm just like this lonely supervillain that's just like left.
But you're just this child, basically.
Yeah, and not with no idea what I'm supposed to be doing, and then oh god, it was so.
And you're just thinking to yourself, I'm going to have to go back to that big house, and I'm going to be haunted and tortured.
What's more important.
That is really high stakes.
What
actually.
is really crucial, and I think that the threat of death is important.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of times, one of the things that gets undervalued in Ruddigore, and which we brought out in 2014 for sure, was that the love story between Robin and Rose needed to feel like the emotional heart of the show, in a way in which I think a lot of productions of Ruddigore don't treat very seriously. And I think some of that might come from it's atypical for a patter role. So you get instances where it's like, oh, it's our patter guy. I mean, how many times was it like a 65-year-old patter guy who was the company's patter guy playing Robin? And it's like, I'm going to be a funny guy. And then the love story is kind of secondary, which means in bygone days, I had that love, that little moment in Act 2 where Rose, it's this thing that I feel like I was thinking about a lot with Grand Duke, where like, if Ludwig just said we don't have to follow these rules, Lisa, how about you and I just leave? Like, none of us have to follow this, but everybody is almost in a metatextual way stuck to the script. And with that being the case, you've gotten these instances where Rose is pleading, like, grant thou my prayer to marry Richard, but like it's this thing where they're all stuck following their duty.
Literally, now that you're saying that, I have now discovered where the stakes are in that song. Because I've never valued their love. Because the thing is, I consider Rose to be a very, very funny character, but one who is a little bit problematic to play in a sense because she seems to change her mind too easily. And for me, that makes hers and Robin's romance lack stakes. But after what you've just said, I'm like, oh, no, but it's because they're stuck. They're repressed and they're stuck. And that is very, very sad.
It's a frazzling set of things that happens to her in the Act 1 finale.
Yeah.
And it's clear in the duet, especially if you do the full 2-verse version. I mean, the two... Open all the cuts in Ruddigore. Maybe not the Ghost March unless you got an idea.
Oh, I love the Ghost
But
cuts.
open the 2 verses of Happily Coupled Are We and open the 2 verses of In Bygone Days. They're worth it. And doing the second verse of In Bygone Days, Gary said something great because he was directing it. I went up the staircase, but now it had Roderick's portion at the end. I walked up the staircase, and we were in rehearsal, and we were like, should we do the second verse? And Gary said, if we do both verses, at the end of first one, like it gives Robin a chance to respond that he doesn't take.
Yeah.
And her singing a second verse is like a necessity.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, like when I played the Lord Chancellor and IOLANTHE sings to me, this was every single performance. I would go up, second verse, I'd be up the stairs. I would evade the first verse. Then she sings the second verse and I'm facing up.
Yeah.
Acting. Then she finishes the second Grant Thou My Prayer and I would rotate every time I'd be crying. And I would say, take her, I yield. And it's just like, I'm there.
So like he has not only just lost the love of his life, but he's about to face the most frightening thing.
So take that. So she leaves.
Yeah.
And here's a great moment where like in some lesser productions, you might have this like transition not have a join. We talk about musical joints being weak. And sometimes when the dialogue joints don't feel like they follow on the number, you have to do a lot of work. So they do and they leave. They sing the reprise of Happily Coupled and they leave. And then Robin has a topic change.
I love that monologue.
But it's
so much.
Think he's watching them go off. For a week I have fulfilled my accursed doom. And like that, the emotion of Rose's aria has to charge that monologue.
Yeah.
And then launch us into the ghost scene. So the ghost scene is just as much about the love story as it is about the ghosts.
Yeah.
In terms of how it fits in the
Like,
structure.
this person is in an incredibly dark psychological place for this second act. And
you can see why I like playing this part so much.
yes.
And why when
I really can.
When I did this show in 2014 and you said, oh, I would see you as Despard, and I was like, what are you talking
Because
about?
you had to understand that I had not even thought about this, because for me, Robin is a comic narcissist. And I hadn't really thought about this. And this is now how I'd want to see that done. But I still maintain that I was right about Despard, though.
I was good at that too. I enjoyed it.
Because the reason I wanted Will to play Despard is because that was more of how I felt about Despard. I felt like he was the more emotionally rich role, and I wanted to see you in that one. But now that you're saying that,
listen, at this point I've done them both, and I think they're like 2 of my top 5 or 6 characters I've ever done. Yeah. So I love them both. And but Robin's arc in Act 2, I found to be like Jack Point. When I would play Jack Point, I would like feel upset for a week. Robin, though, has this victory at the end that felt so right.
Yeah.
And then so at the very end, and then the last line of the show, delay, certainly not. Just like, I'm done. I'm happy, I'm in love, I'm with Rose, and I'm not going to back away again. I'm not going to entertain all of these other problems.
So, I have had a capital dinner. I went out into Times Square. Do you want to know where I went?
You went to Applebee's.
I went to Applebee's.
I guess.
Because I've heard a lot about Applebee's. That's just been like a standard place where people eat in America. But I'd never been. So I just wanted to experience it, and it was lovely. You know what was really good? The pretzel sticks. Oh my god. They were really nice. Have you had them before?
Can't say I have.
I think Americans find it very funny that I wanted to go to Applebee's.
Well, the official number 3,
Yeah.
as for the points, is the Lord Chancellor.
Yes, that's what I expected. Because he was my number 4.
Mm-hmm. He's tied for number 1 for me.
Yeah. And
Let's get into the real nitty gritty of numbers on these. So
Yeah,
let's do category by category.
what did you give the Lord Chancellor for music?
20.
I gave him a 17.
Interesting.
I quite like the groove of his first song, but I don't find it particularly remarkable or interesting. It's nice for character, but it's not mind-blowing. And his song that he sings to Strephon, I find pretty forgettable.
I have a hard time arguing with that, despite my 20. I think it there's a virtue in its brevity.
Like, I'm pretty sure that when I first directed IOLANTHE, I clean forgot about that song's existence. The Lord Chancellor singing to Strephon, I just didn't even remember that it was in the show. And then you just blocked it. But his, obviously, the Nightmare song I rate extremely highly. I really, really love that number. I think that is fabulous. As an insomniac, I relate to this character. And I get that anxiety and that worry. And I get that he's repressed. And that is tremendously interesting when a character's repressed.
That's all it is. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that his repression has an understated maturity that I think has him stand as kind of my favorite. There was a 2016, I did Forbear, Blue Troop, Forbear, and then Forbear again.
Yeah.
For a total of like 17 performances
Yeah.
in a year, and that's an unusually large amount to do the same person in shows in. And I've done it before for my own group in New York. So like I've done it now in like 5 productions, and I never ran out of things to find. And I think that like when we've done the Baron's Court runs, I think that this is the one of those 3 that I think was the most emotionally gratifying in terms of like getting every night to go through for 12 straight performances in 2 weeks to do this track. So if we were to think about, that's sort of, I'll not skip lyrics and dialogue, but I do want to get into emotional and dramatic potential.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I gave him an 18 for his lyrics and dialogue.
Yeah, it's a 19 on my end.
Yeah,
So
he's pretty high.
It's this sequence where he comes in, and if you want to just listen to what this is, I think my favorite GNS recording ever is the 1960, I think.
That's the one I have on CD, but I can't
1960 Joy the Cart recording, which has such a wonderful color to the way the dialogue is recorded. And I could just hear the sound of John Reed like coming in. Victory, victory, success has crowned my efforts, and I considered myself engaged to Phyllis. That line is so interesting to me because it's like the most lonely, open moment. And it's a callback to the first scene, which we haven't talked about, but which is, because I'm going to go hard on this if you allow me. I think Lord Chancellor's the coolest. He has that whole first scene about, and I admit this is a little half-baked, but he says, can he give his own consent to his own to marry his own ward? Can he marry his own ward without his own consent? And if he marry his own ward without his own consent, can he commit himself in contempt of his own court? And he has this whole line in his first scene of like, if I'm this guy, how can I be that guy? And like, it's a little topsy-turvy.
Yeah.
And the feeling that like he might genuinely be getting a little bit in the weeds about this, entirely to repress his feelings. He says, I'm quite prepared to marry again. And ultimately, he's trying to cover up for the loss of his wife via whatever his possession of Phyllis represents.
No, I love that, and I completely see that.
And so to ever make, like, it's almost like if he actually did marry Phyllis, there would be nothing for him. Like, he wouldn't get anything from it. So he's been holding on to this pain for so long, and there are very few indications that it's in there besides the way in which he covers it. I think he is not flashy in that respect. But in that final scene, I don't know if I'm ever reading into it too much, but after you've gone through the Nightmare song, which is your first entrance in Act 2, and then you've had the scene with the guys, And then you come on again, because you say, well, I will nerve myself to another effort and resign myself to my fate. You do your trio. And you're like, okay, I've done it. I've been convinced by my 2 boyfriends that I should marry Phyllis. That's what I'm supposed to do. That's how I'm supposed to get through this. Success has crowned my efforts, and I might consider myself engaged to Phyllis. I may consider myself engaged. What a weird way to say that, like, I'm marrying the person I want. I may consider myself engaged to Phyllis. At first I wouldn't hear of it. It was out of the question. But I took heart. I pointed out to myself that I was no stranger to myself. And in point of fact, I've been personally acquainted with myself for some years. This had its effect. I then endeavored to work upon my feelings. Conceived my joy when I distinctly perceived a tear glistening in my own eye. Eventually, after a severe struggle with myself, I reluctantly, most reluctantly, consented.
You know what? I think when we make our film series of GNS, I think the Lord Chancellor would work extremely well as a film. I think what I'm struggling with the Lord Chancellor, and don't get me wrong, I still absolutely love this part, is that he's not as extroverted as the 2 we haven't talked about yet. So I think that their high stakes and anxiety are just more entertaining. And this character is definitely just as interesting inside, but because he's more introverted, it's hard to get that across on the stage. But I think for a film, the Lord Chancellor would be up there with those 2.
I think my devil's advocation for all of this is when we did it at Barron's Court, which is 30 seats in the tiny round.
Oh, that worked really well as well.
It worked really well,
yeah.
And those are moments that, like, in that final scene, I'm never more than 2 inches from the people in the audience. So I think that played very, very easily.
Yeah.
So having gotten to do 12 performances of that in this room, I was playing the film version of it.
Yeah.
And it really worked, I think.
Yeah, I love that.
All of this ties in with emotional and dramatic potential.
Yeah.
And
What did I give him
comedic
for that?
I have a 20 for that.
I gave him a 19. Because I was saving my 20
You're saving
for
someone else.
Someone else.
Yeah, okay.
But because I don't think that this character has quite the same dramatic and emotional potential as one other character.
I guess I have a 4-way tie for 20. I have 20, 20, 20, 20 for the top 4.
I did give him a 9 for enjoyment. I gave him a 16 for comedic potential.
This is very interesting. Comedic potential is 17 because I can warrant. He does rank lower than Bunthorne by 2.
I think that he's funny, but he's not as screamingly funny. How funny is Bunthorne? How funny is the Mikado
The
guy?
LC is the straight man in a lot of the scenes.
Yeah, and I do think he's funny. I still gave him a 16. And that is well above average. But he's not as funny as Bunthorne.
No, I completely sent you last night when I was eating that ice cream. Do you remember this?
No, I do, but I've forgotten which scene it was. Sir, you are England's Lord High Chancellor, but are you Chancellor of birds and bees, and King of the winds, and Prince of thunderclouds?
No. It's a nice point. I don't know that I ever met it before, but my difficulty is that at present there's no evidence before the court that Chorus Nature has interested herself in the matter.
No evidence? You have my word for it. I tell you that she bade me take my love.
But you mustn't tell us what she told you. It's not evidence. Now, an affidavit from a thunderstorm or a few words on oath from a heavy shower meet with all the attention they deserve.
And have you the heart to apply the prosaic rules of evidence to a case which bubbles over with poetical emotion?
Distinctly. I have always kept my duty strictly before my eyes, and it is to that fact that I owe my advancement to my present distinguished position.
Because what's nice about that is that he's such a dad.
He's such a papa.
And, yeah, he's cute. But You still cannot. Still don't think you've convinced me that he is on a par with the two we've not talked about yet.
I have enjoyment 10 for this one. I have 3 10s for enjoyment.
Oh, I have a 9 for this one. I don't find him as engaging as a character. I think that as an actor, there's a ton you can do with him, and you have convinced me that the Lord Chancellor can be a really excellent part. But I think that he doesn't really step out and become something really special until the bit with IOLANTHE at the end.
Well,
until then, he does kind of fade to the background a bit, I think, and it's really mainly about Strephon.
I think that one thing that a good Lord Chancellor will do is understand that they have to be the same human being that's capable of feeling what they're going to feel at the end, but that the key hasn't been turned yet.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I think that transformation at the end is unearned by people who are just letting the book do the work.
Yeah. Because I have seen a lot of productions where this part could have been played by anybody, and I wasn't really noticing that actor.
Sure.
And
but he is the.
But I haven't noticed that as being like, oh, that's a shame, because I really go to the IOLANTHE to make sure that's played by a good person, you know. But it's never been a part that I particularly think needs to be good for the show to be good.
I completely disagree.
I mean, obviously, it's better when the person's
I mean, it's just. But, I mean, I don't think anybody has as much to do in that show as that character does.
Really?
Yeah, because
I guess in the Outland finale, he does have a lot.
Here's the thing.
As well.
You're dealing with a show where almost all the other principals have to share stage time.
Mm-hmm.
Like Talal or Montara don't get to stand out on their own. The fairies don't get to stand out on their own. Even Phyllis and Strephon are in their way a dyad. Where they each... Phyllis doesn't even have a proper aria. Lord Chancellor has 3 solos.
That is true, actually.
Let me put it this way. I would argue that the top 5 on this list that we've got, and if you know the rest, you know who's left, are the only 5 that I think should ideally be the last bow in a production.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that is almost an indication to me. I always think of the last bow as being who's the character around this, whom this pivots, whose plot is cathartically summed up last. I would argue that the Private Willis Fairy Queen's resolution is not the primary thing. The important moment is this.
Yeah, because
the important moment is, allow me as an old equity draftsman to make a suggestion. The thing is really quite simple. The insertion of a single word will do it. Let it stand that every fairy shall die who don't marry a mortal. There you are, out of your difficulty at once. The stakes of that can be huge, whereas a lot of times you'll just see, allow me as an old equity draftsman to make a suggestion, and it's just the same thought from Act 1.
No, I get that. And when we did it with Forbear, in Harrogate,
yes,
Richard Naxton played that part, and I thought he was beautiful. He was doing all of these things that you were saying. It was understated, and he was definitely that person all the way through. And he was singing the music in the correct rhythm as well, which I know you liked. And wait, because everyone sings the rhythm of that second aria wrong. How should it go, and how is it often done?
So it's in the accompaniments in 2, but the vocals in 6. When I went to the bar as a very young man, said I to myself, said I.
You never hear it done that way.
Yeah.
People just say, I work on a new and original plan. Don't they? They just dot it or.
And it's also usually very slow, and it almost feels like somebody trying to make their point and then rush the person out of the room.
But it is. But I thought that I just remember Richard just delivering that as if it was the easiest thing in the world, and that was. I really liked that. He's a good dude. And then, but the thing is, even seeing him do it, who I considered, I just thought he did everything that we said, and he did it so well. But I wouldn't go out of that show thinking, oh, the Lord Chancellor was the biggest part of that show. He was the most important part. Because I just think that the whole IOLANTHE is just like a tapestry of so many things. And I wouldn't have picked out that part of the story as necessarily being the heart of it. Even if it maybe is. I'm not sure.
It's a disadvantage to the show if the performer performs it in a way that makes it like that.
Yeah.
And part of the joy of being the Lord Chancellor is understanding that it is a little bit of the same reason I love Robin so much, is that in the denouement, when you link up with your loved one, even though he has the last solo in the show. In a way, it's almost like it's very easy to like fade into the chorus. Be like, your intimate romance is fine. I mean, there is nothing more powerful to me than that ending.
Oh, it's wonderful.
I think that is the best, the single best, the moment of the GNS canon. The innovation that I insisted upon in our show is to cut the revelation in the dialogue.
Oh, yeah, that really helps.
So, if you don't like this, you can comment, but you have to still give the video a like. What I need you to do is just listen for a second. And if you've never tried this, you gotta try it. It's good. This is how the scene plays now in the version as I've made this little cut. You know not what you ask, the Lord Chancellor is, says Iolanthe, and before she can say, my husband, and your father, the Lord Chancellor says, victory, victory, success has crowned my efforts. Interrupting that scene, they run off. So the revelation is no longer in the dialogue. The revelation only happens for both the audience and the LC at the same time. Now, Gilbert obviously wrote the Iolanthe aria with this implicit understanding that the audience would know who she's singing about and that she is his wife. I think that a lot of people guess without that dialogue scene.
Yeah.
And I think that like a good murder mystery, the reveal that makes you feel smart for having guessed it is different than the reveal for making you think that the material was weak for you having guessed it. So I think that like your father and my husband and all of that can get a laugh because it's like, oh, well, duh.
And it's so bad when there's a laugh there.
And it like as a LC, it's happened to me so many times. I'm about to go out and I'm like, please, like, can we, this next scene should have a clear platform. My mom, who's got nothing to do with theater or opera or nothing, she saw my first Iolanthe, and I asked her about this. I'm like, tell me, did you know that was going to be the twist? And she's like, oh, I had a feeling, and then when it happened, I cried. And I'm like, oh, you're not going to cry in the reveal, and maybe you'll still cry. But I think that I am thy wife, is so perfect musically that to have that revelation be for the audience and the LC at the same time is really powerful.
So what's interesting about these final two is that I have a strong suspicion that these two, like when I list all of the characters in one list, I think these will still be the top two. I don't know. They are really, really strong characters. I mean, yeah, it's really tough.
It's like as good as you get.
It's really tough, and I think it came to me, between the two of them, which one ticks more boxes. One of them just ticked more boxes for me.
I get you.
But let's talk about number two.
In second place, with 169 points.
Out of 180.
Checkpoint. For which, there are remarkably high scores, I'm sure, across the board for both of us. But I've given music a 19.
Me too.
Great music for Jackpoint. I think Jackpoint has hot take. I think a lot of the patter songs, as we've discussed before, are kind of flat musically to allow room for the text. Simple chords and basic accompaniment. I think I've Jive at a Joke is so musically interesting.
Oh my god.
In its little two-part structure.
And even Private Buffoon as well.
Private Buffoon, for being 5 verses of the same thing, is uncommonly interesting. And has a lot of musical details that are often ignored that make it even more, I don't know, in its various ways, funny and sinister and true and dark. And I think that there's never a moment in Yeomen where I'm not feeling anxiety. And there's something incredibly anxious about those repeated B flats, and as the melody is playing, there's just this horrific, like, driving energy.
What about that bit in the Act 1 finale where he comes in, oh, woe is you, your anguish think, oh, woe is me, I rather think, yes, oh, is me, I rather think, yes, oh, is me, I rather think. He says something 3 times, so you have to decide, like, as an actor, why is he saying that 3 times? And you're like,
Enjoyment was a 9 because I feel depressed after we finish performances of this show.
Yeah.
Always do.
The thing is, like this, I absolutely love Jack Point, but I think a lot of people want to play him. And there was a reason for that. And I have given him a 10 for enjoyment. Because I think he gives you a tremendous amount of catharsis, because I think that whereas most people probably can't empathise directly with Jack Point, I think he is a person who, he is an actor himself, like he's a performer, and his problem is that he can't express himself emotionally very well, and he's very good on stage, but he has trouble in real life, and through his own kind of inner saboteur, he loses the only person who has ever loved him and who he's loved. I think a lot of performers, we overthink so much, and a lot of us are incredibly emotional and incredibly sensitive, and we second guess our actions, and we have insecurities. So I think that Jack Point is such a good part to play because actors want that experience of playing him, and I think we can all relate to him to a certain extent.
I mean, yeah, when I got into the GNS canon, these are the parts that I wanted to play. There was no question. I think that's not an uncommon feeling. Like, these are the ones that a lot of people go, a lot of baritone types, like, oh, I have to try that on.
Yeah.
And this one takes a lot out of you.
I don't like it when Jack Point seems tragic. I like it when he seems anxious, and he's just very high energy, and you can see him just like on the edge of a breakdown during the whole thing in a way that is both horrifying and hilarious.
He's a part I played when I was 20. We talked about being 23 before. And I definitely played him, thinking of the fact that I had been in high school a few years earlier. Like, the clumsy high school suitor energy in my brain informed that in a way that if I did it today, it would be such a different kind of guy. But
yeah, I think that the trap people can fall into with Jack Point is making him very self-indulgent. And I think that can make him a bit unlikable. I do think that he does have to have a very strong and compatible connection with Elsie. So it's not just based on his, like, incel delusion. Like, there is actually something genuine there, and he isn't just thinking about himself, he is also thinking of her.
It's got to be real.
Yeah.
It's got to be real enough for Tush and Latif, that whole scene where he's like, Tush, she's promised to Jack Point the lieutenant's new jester.
Yeah.
Like, why would Sergeant Merrill know that if there wasn't something true?
Exactly.
How would he have gotten that far?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's good, and no sir, for though I'm a fool, there's a limit to my folly. Like, that being kind of like they're kind of into it. But there are things like I noticed a thing that I've always found is very interesting. Her mother, old Bridget Maynard, travels with us, for Elsie is a good girl, because she's a good girl because Elsie does not go out as a 17-year-old without her mother, which is be her chaperone.
Yeah.
She can't travel with a man on her own.
Yeah.
And I've always wondered, how frustrated Jack Point is by the fact that Bridget Maynard's always around.
But I also think, I mean, we don't know this because it's not explicitly said in the text, but I always imagine him as, like, Elsie's 17, he's probably like 19, 20, but they're like childhood friends, and they've made up this act, and they're travelling together, and he maybe fell in love with her, like, since a couple of years ago, and has just been falling deeper and deeper ever since then, but he wants to do right by her, so he's not approached her yet about it, and he's going to wait until she's 18 and her mother's better and her situation's a bit more stable and they've made a bit more money, and that's all it is. There's nothing kind of predatory there.
That's true.
But he's just been waiting for like a moment, but also he is just cripplingly shy when it comes to actually expressing his feelings about her, because he is a bit in awe of her, because she's probably like really pretty, and very charismatic. Which, I just think that it doesn't have to be like a sad old man, like lusting after like somebody who is unattainable. Like, it doesn't have to be that. And
you put it well last night. We talked about it, where when she talks to Fairfax and then they have the arquebus scene, That it's like, well, after she talks to Fairfax, she would never see the view. She sees a clear, almost like a clear disparity between how she could possibly feel about Leonard and Jack Point, and that Jack Point is still like one level behind. It's like people from the provinces ending up in the big city.
Yeah, because Elsie just gets like really starstruck by Leonard and how he's just so assertive with her in a way that, because he teases her, like he gets on with her, they have chemistry. And then she sees Jack Point again and she sees, oh, have I like already outgrown him?
All he can do is offer I can tell jokes.
Yeah. And I think she realises, wow, if you just said this to me 2 days ago, I would have felt differently. But now that I've like tasted something a bit more exciting, I'm kind of lost. I'm lost to that now.
Well,
that is real. That is real life. That happens.
Tell me, do you have a 20 for lyrics and dialogue? You saved 20 for
I gave a 19 for lyrics and dialogue. Because you know what? I don't actually think a lot of Jack Point's dialogue is like amazing. I love this scene with Wilfred that we're about to do.
The lieutenant scene, man. That's the funniest scene
that is
ever.
really good. But the thing is, I don't think his lines are as funny.
You win funny.
You know?
You win funny.
I don't know. I do think, I still gave him a 19. I just think he's down a notch. He is down a notch for me from Bunthorne and the one we haven't talked about yet. He is down one notch from them. Lyrics and dialogue.
I think that this next scene here, and then the scene we did for the Patterman in the show that we haven't mentioned yet, people know what number one is. They've counted.
Yeah.
But that scene and this scene are like my two number one Patter person scenes.
Let's do this.
Mary Joseph Hugh Ambrose, number 7863. The poor wit and the rich counsellor. A certain poor wit, being an hunger, did meet a well-fed counsellor. Merry fool, quoth the counsellor, whither away? In truth, said the poor wag, and that I've eaten not these 2 days, I do wither away, and that right rapidly. The counsellor laughed hugely and gave him a sausage. Counsellor was easier to please than my new master, the lieutenant. I should like to take post under that counsellor. Ah, 'tis but melancholy mumming when poor heartbroken jilted Jack Point must needs turn to Hugh Ambrose for original light humour.
Ah, Master Point.
Ah, friend jailer. Jailer that wast. Jailer that never shall be more. Jailer that jailed not, or that jailed if jail he did, so unjailily that 'twas but jerry jailing, or jailing in joke. Though no joke to him, by unjailer like jailing did so jeopardize his jailership. Come, take heart, smile, laugh, wink, twinkle. Thou tormentor that tormentest none, thou racker that rackest not, thou pincher out of place. Come, take heart and be merry, as I am. As I am.
Aye, it is well for thee to laugh. Thou hast a good post, and hast cause to be merry.
Cause. Have we not all cause? Is not the whole world a big butt of humour into which all who will may drive a gimlet? See, I am a salaried wit. Is there art in nature more ridiculous? A poor, dull, heartbroken man who must needs be merry or he will be whipped, who must rejoice lest he starve, who must jest you, jibe you, quip you, crank you, rack you, riddle you from hour to hour, from day to day, from year to year, lest he dwindle, perish, starve, pine, and die. I have no one else to laugh at. I laugh at myself till I ache for it.
Yet, I have often thought that a jester's calling would suit me to a hair.
Thee? Would suit thee, thou death's head and crossbones?
I have a pretty wit, a light, airy, joysome wit, spiced with anecdotes of prison cells and the torture chamber. Oh, a very delicate wit. I've tried it on many a prisoner, and there have been some who smiled. Now, it's not easy to make a prisoner smile, and it should not be difficult to be a good jester, seeing that thou art one.
Difficult. Nothing easier, nothing easier. Attend, and I will prove it to thee. Though your head is made rack with a bilious attack, and your senses with toothache you're losing, don't be mopey and fat, they don't find you for that if you're properly quaint and amusing. Though your wife ran away with a soldier that day and took with her a trifle of money, bless your heart, they don't mind, they're exceedingly kind. They don't blame you as long as you're funny. It's a comfort to feel if your partner shall fit, though you suffer a deal, they don't mind it a bit. They don't blame you as long as you're funny. So thou wouldst be a jester, eh?
Aye.
Listen. My sweetheart, Elsie Maynard, was secretly wed to this Fairfax half an hour ere he escaped.
She did well.
She did nothing of the kind, so hold thy peace and perpend. Now, while he liveth, she is dead to me and I to her, and so my jibes and jokes notwithstanding, I am the saddest and sorriest dog in England.
Oh, what a very dull dog indeed.
Now, if thou would swear that thou didst shoot this Fairfax while he was trying to swim across the river, it needs but the discharge of an arquebus on a dark night, and that he sank and was seen no more. I will make thee the very Archbishop of Jesters, and that in 2 days' time. What sayest thou?
I am to lie.
Heartily. But thy lie must be a lie of circumstance, which I will support with the testimony of eyes, ears, and tongue.
And thou wilt qualify me as a jester?
As a jester among jesters, I will teach thee all my original songs, my self-constructed riddles, my own ingenious paradoxes, nay, more. I will reveal to thee the source from whence I get them. Now, what sayest thou?
Well, if it be but a lie thou wantest of me, I'll hold it cheap enough, and I say yes. It's a bargain.
Dudes. Ah.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's good.
I hope you all like my Wilfred.
That's really good.
Yeah. It's just, I think that that Jack Point is one of these characters who, and I know it sounds like really kind of actory to say this, but his needs and wants are very clear, even though they're not clear to himself. And that is so interesting.
Yeah.
So he manages to somehow telegraph to the audience what he really feels while saying words that do not go along with that. But they're written in such a way that the meaning is very obvious within them. And I think that you instantly understand exactly what their relationship is, or you should.
What's remarkable about it is they don't meet in Act 1. Right?
Yeah, Wilfred and Point, and that's so good because they are two of my favourite characters in Yeomen. Like I absolutely love those two characters, and seeing them kind of have a conversation is like, oh, these two are getting to me, yes, and I think that is great. I'm not a huge fan of their duet, actually. I mean, it's all right, but I think I only put it like 30 or something out of duets.
How many duets are there?
47.
That's a lot of duets.
There are actually 48 though, because I forgot to put Our Love, True Love in it. The wife of a man I have never seen.
Why, so look you, I am concerned in this. For though I am not yet wedded to Elsie Maynard, time works wonders, and there's no knowing what may be in store for us. Have we your worship's word for it that this gentleman will die today?
Nothing is more certain, I grieve to say.
And that the maiden will be allowed to depart the very instant the ceremony is at an end?
The very instant. I pledge my honour that it shall be so.
100 crowns.
100 crowns.
For my part, I consent. It is for Elsie to speak. And there's something very interesting there. You could play that last line a million different ways.
Yeah.
Like he oversteps and then realizes that he's like spoken on her behalf.
Yeah.
He can see her in that little or he could be completely for my part, I consent. It is for Elsie to speak. Like there's so many ways you can play this weird moment of obliviousness where he's suddenly like not really giving her the space that for her to make this decision. And if he propels this moment, all she has to say is the wife of a man I have never seen. And she never says yes. She just gets blindfolded and taken off. And it's just in the number, and this trio is incredible. The fact that this trio, like the earlier trio with the Merrills, is a trio that like dramatic beats happen over. And there's necessary stages.
Yeah, this got a really high mark narratively, this trio. I did like that one.
So there's something wonderfully dark about the way that he propels this situation to happen by being aggressive in this scene.
I've never seen it that way. And as I say, I just prefer Point when he isn't at all kind of dangerous.
There's nothing dangerous here, but she says, the wife of a man I have never seen. Then what happens to her? Is she listening to this conversation, or is she too dazzled at the thought sometimes? Because the way her music picks her back up, she's a little in a daze.
I mean, the way I read this is just she's just kind of thinking about it, and Point and Lieutenant are just having a conversation, and she's thinking. I don't think Point is interrupting. I don't think he goes even close to the line here, and this is like just his attempt to try to, because he has never confessed his feelings for Elsie. And this is just his way of trying to say so in like a jokey way. For me, this was always said in like, no, what? Look, you, I am concerned in this. For though I'm not wedded to Elsie Maynard, time works wonders, between guys, like, and it's just him like hinting, like, she's actually really important to me. Mm. For me, Elsie is just waiting, always, and has been waiting for a while, for Jack Point to turn to her and say, Elsie, I have such big feelings for you. I am so in love with you. Would you be my wife? I think Elsie wants Jack Point to say that to her. But instead, he just tells her jokes and like playfully like hits her, like, and is just like treating her like a pal. So I think Elsie somehow like thinks she's been like friend zoned. And this objection is so kind of weak in a way. And I think it's because he's still too scared, even at this point. Because the thing is, I firmly believe that, in the way I would like Yeomen to go, if Jack Point had heard this and said, Elsie, I need to just be brave. That this has really made me understand how I feel about you. I can't let this happen. And it makes me feel, this show makes me feel sick, because there are so many moments where if Jack Point just said what he was feeling, he probably would have got exactly what he wanted. And that's what makes me feel, that's what breaks me, because I feel like Elsie loves him. He is her absolute favourite person in the world. They have such a chemistry. They are best friends. They adore each other. Yet he cannot express himself in the way she's like more mature than him. He's just not on her level. And if he'd ever just had the courage to say that to her, she would have loved him just as much. And I think the fact that he doesn't really object makes her feel like, well, yeah, I may as well go ahead with it then. And then especially then when he is then like a kind of really angry at her in the Act 1 finale, just because he's just reacting without really thinking. I don't think for a moment he's actually thinking horrible things about Elsie, but it is just like a moment of lunacy and a moment of panic, which I think he really regrets. And if he'd at any point come to just visit her after she'd fainted and said to her, Elsie, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I said that to you. And I know you're married now, but please, I want to be here for you in some way. Just, I'm so sorry.
You know what's odd is I've always felt, because they become siloed in Act 2. And I've always felt like I've never considered that that's his choice. I've always considered that, like, she's recuperating for 2 days, and she's there, and she's doing what she's doing. But then, like, he should have snuck in. But they seemed, it's like in my brain, they've always had her under kind of weird lock and key, where now she's now, like, in...
But she's been walking around. She's not, like, confined to the room. He totally could have found a way to see her.
He's just...
Because she's seen Leonard. Leonard's seen her. Like, she's not being cloistered.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha.
Yeah.
But he's a...
These are rules which he has enforced upon himself through the bit of ego that he has. Because he does have a little bit of ego, and that prevents him from just being honest with her. And that, for me, is how it should be done, because that is like the most relatable and most heartbreaking thing, when you said the right thing but too late, just a little bit too late. Because when he comes in at the end and says to her like what she would have wanted to hear the whole time,
It's too late.
it's too late.
Do you know this scene though? I have to go back to this for a minute. I think it's interesting too that like he finally consents when he confirms the money, and I think that's just another motivation that they're both financially desperate.
Yes, yeah,
And that this can be motivated for his desire to help her mother out, or it could be motivated just by his own hunger.
yeah.
'Cause clearly he's like, yeah, but I gotta eat too. I guess I still have this thing of like, how much does he care about Bridget Maynard? Like, is she just an extension of Elsie? Is she someone that he actually gets on with when they're traveling together?
I mean,
You'll never know, but
I just imagine she is.
and
She's a nice
and does Elsie over here look you? I am concerned in this.
I don't know, but the thing is, even if she had overheard it, it's just like it's not really a big declaration of love, is it? It's more transactional, you know.
But here's the difference. Before it's, but though I'm a fool, there is a limit to my folly. When he says, "Hark ye, sir, you man and wife,"
Yeah.
and he's like, "No, of course not. Like I'm not that stupid." And then a minute later, he's like, "I'm not yet married her, but like, maybe I will be someday." And yeah, it does feel a little more like I'm only going to tell this to you because I am afraid to say it otherwise. I think before we go on to number one, we should look at one more thing, which is the comedy.
Okay.
Because there is comedy in this.
Yeah. No, I totally think there is comedy, but
I feel like we could talk a lot about because we've got comedic potential. I got an 18.
I think, let's see, I gave him a 15.
Right. So let's see.
But I gave him 20. He's the only one I gave a 20 for emotional dramatic potential.
Let's do this scene.
And how came you to leave your last employ?
Why, sir, it was in this wise. My lord was the Archbishop of Canterbury, and it was considered that one of my jokes was unsuited to his Grace's family circle. In truth, I ventured to ask a poor riddle, sir, wherein lay the difference between his Grace and poor Jack Point. His Grace was pleased to give it up, sir, and thereupon I told him that whereas his Grace was paid 10,000 a year for being good, poor Jack Point was good for nothing. This offended his Grace, who whipped me and set me in the stocks for a sculler rogue, and so we parted. I had as lief not take post again with the dignified clergy.
But I trust you were very careful not to give offence. I have daughters.
Sir, my jests are most carefully selected, and anything objectionable is expunged. If your honour pleases, I will try them first on your honour's chaplain.
Can you give me an example? Say that I had sat me down hurriedly on something sharp.
Sir, I should say that you had sat down upon the spur of the moment.
I don't think much of that. Is that the best you can do?
It has always been much admired, sir, but we will try again.
Well, then I am at dinner, and the joint of meat is but half cooked.
Why, then, sir, I should say that what is underdone cannot be helped.
I see. I think that manner of thing would be somewhat irritating.
At first, sir, perhaps, but use is everything, and you would come in time to like it.
We will suppose that I caught you kissing the kitchen wench under my very nose.
Under her very nose, good sir, not under yours. That's what I would kiss at. Do you take me? Oh, a pretty wit, a pretty wit.
The maiden comes. Oh, so there's more. The maiden comes. Follow me, my friend, and we will discuss this matter at length in my library.
I am your worship's servant. That is to say, I trust I soon shall be. But before proceeding to a more serious topic, can you tell me, sir, why a cook's brain pan is like an overwhelmed clock?
A truce to this fooling. Follow me.
Just my luck, my best conundrum wasted.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I just don't think it's more clever than it is funny to me.
Do you know what it is? I'm reading it right now. It revealed to me how this scene is funny is so dependent on the lieutenant as well.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes I've done this scene and I've struggled.
But was I reading it kind of how you expected?
Yeah. I mean, it's yes.
she's an attractive girl. Like,
Yeah. That killed me.
There's like the lieutenant's complete humorlessness.
Yeah.
I tell you, I saw the best version of this ever, which was at a John Reed tribute event.
Oh.
Nygasp had John Reed do some shows with them in the 80s, and they played him doing this scene. And at this point, this is the 1980s, John Reed, post-Doily Cart.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, watching the video of this shot from the balcony was the funniest thing I've ever seen. And just seeing like how completely cooked every delivery was for John. It was so amazing. And I have certain images of ways in which his body moved during that, like as he delivered the different punchlines that were clearly like, this is a point at which somebody knew exactly what the movement was, and it was not stale. And I think that sometimes that happens if you're in a rep company and then you suddenly do the same role out of rep. So you're like in a new environment and you're doing your own thing, but you are still part of the show. So I think that I've seen this kill, but I will tell you, I think the scene we talked about last night from this next show is still like as funny as it gets. And I was comparing that scene to the Wilford scene here. Wilford scene's got barely a joke in it. Wilford's pretty funny because he's like, I make people laugh and smile. Jack Point's comedic potential at being 15, I don't think is unfair.
Yeah. We have moved on to our favourite patter roll of the canon, which is a pretty big one. And it's what I am surprised in this list at how much I am beginning to like love the really popular ones in some respects. And the more I think about it, the three operas that keep surprising me in terms of how much I love elements of them are the Mikado, Princess Ida, and Utopia Limited. I'm like, I had no idea how much I liked these three. And I am so surprised by a lot of this because I haven't even done the Mikado. I mean, I directed it, but we just did like a one day of rehearsal and just went straight into it. And that was 6 years ago now. And then the last time I was in a proper fully staged production was 12 years ago. And I didn't really miss it, but this part, I honestly think so let me go through what I gave him.
Yes, please.
I gave him a 19 for music. I don't think his music is quite as good as Scaphio Phantis. I put it on a level with Jack Point's music.
I got 20 Lord Chancellor, 19 Jack Point, 18 Robin, 17 Mikado guy.
Because
I'll tell you, there's a reason for this. When I did like a circuit in 2010 through 2013, where I did all three principal baritones in different productions. And I kept finding that like the smaller of the three had my favorite music.
Okay.
And then our Great Mikado was like our top aria.
Yeah.
That and Despard. And then
I'm thinking of like Titwillow, taken from a county jail, his material in the Act 1 finale, Flowers That Bloom in the Spring, Here's a Howdy Do, Beauty and the Bow of the Blast. And he's got so much stuff.
You know what? Those are all good. He is in I Am So Proud. And so that counts for something. I guess I'm always looking for like who has the juiciest harmony and whatnot. Yeah.
I think it was a lot of the music score for him was just like the amount of music that he has, and a lot of it is just so interesting. And I just love Titwillow so much. And that's his big kind of coup d'etat. Is that the right word to use? It's just like, this character is so anxious, it is on like 100 energy all the way through the show, like desperately trying to sort his problems out. And he is living in this situation where he was about to be executed and he was just pulled out and put basically in charge of everything, but he's got loads of people on all sides telling him what to do. And he is just living under this constant knowledge that at any time people might just turn around and say, oh, it's not worth it. Yeah, let's just reinstate it. Right, you're next to be executed. Like at any point, that could happen. And he is so terrified that his position is fragile and going to fall apart, because he is so low status and so deferential to everyone around him. He needs to make sure that everyone's okay. He doesn't really seem to like the soprano that much, just more of like a status thing. And it just seems like he is desperately trying to stay alive, trying to stay in power, making sure everything's lined up and okay. And he's going through the whole opera in a totally anxious daze. And then he gets to this moment with the alto, and suddenly, for some reason, he just gets to this point where he's just about to break down, but then he just becomes suddenly really eloquent. And it's almost like he remembers how to breathe again. He's like, oh, yeah, I actually am in control. I do actually have some charisma. You know? And it's the first time you really get to see him, like, slow down. I just think this character would be so funny if he was just constantly moving and running around and, like, just in a completely anxious, like, daze, constantly on the brink of a total nervous collapse.
There's a reason
I just love it.
I've got, like, when we did it in the Bronx Opera, I got gifts galore from this production of running around and flipping and stuff. The production I showed you last night, where was with the understudies.
Yes.
The MD of that show told me I did that line too beautifully. He's like, oh, this is a comedy, and he's like, you did it like it was Shakespeare. I'm like, but it's so, I don't know, like.
That's how.
There's a moment where.
Why do people want us to be bad?
That is so, yeah. Yeah, the amount of times I've read the character descriptions for an audition for a GNS show, and they're actively like be bad and unlikable is so unpleasant. You want to root for everybody, except Alexis.
Except Alexis. When I eventually direct the Mikado, I'm just going to change all of these names and have it set in a totally separate place. But because we don't have the time to do that right now, we are going to use the names when we read these dialogues, because the characters use each other's names. So if you don't want to hear any of the names, please skip to the next timestamp. I will make it clear where to skip to.
So this scene comes after Here's a Howdy Do, where Patterman thinks he's won. He thinks he's got this in the bag. My poor boy, I'm really very sorry for you.
Thanks, old fellow. I'm sure you are.
You see, I'm quite helpless.
I can see that.
I can't conceive of anything more distressing than having one's marriage broken off at the last moment. But you shan't be disappointed of a wedding. You shall come to mine.
It's awfully kind of you, but that's impossible.
Why so?
Today I die.
What do you mean?
I can't live without Yum Yum. This afternoon, I perform the Happy Dispatch.
No. Pardon me, I can't allow that.
Why not?
Why, hang us all. You're on a contract to die by the hand of the public executioner in a month's time. If you kill yourself, what's to become of me? Why, I should have to be executed in your place.
It would certainly seem so.
Enter Pooh-Bah. Now then, Lord Mayor, what is it?
The Mikado and his suite are approaching the city and will be here in 10 minutes.
Mikado, he's coming to see whether his orders have been carried out. And look here, you know, this is getting serious. A bargain's a bargain, and you really mustn't frustrate the ends of justice by committing suicide. As a man of honor and a gentleman, you are bound to die ignominiously at the hands of the public executioner.
Very well then, behead me.
What, now?
Certainly, at once. Chop it off, chop it off!
My good sir, I don't go about prepared to execute gentlemen at a moment's notice. Why, I never even killed a bluebottle.
Still, as Lord High Executioner...
My good sir, as Lord High Executioner, I've got to behead him in a month. Not ready yet. I don't know how it's done. I'm going to take lessons. I mean to begin with a guinea pig and work my way through the animal kingdom until I come to a second trombone. Well, as a humane man, you don't suppose I'd have accepted the post of Lord High Executioner if I hadn't thought the duties purely nominal? I can't kill you. I can't kill anything. I can't kill anybody!
Come, my poor fellow. We all have unpleasant duties to discharge at times. After all, what is it? If I don't mind, why should you? Remember, sooner or later, it must be done.
Must it? I'm not so sure about that.
What do you mean?
Why should I kill you when making an affidavit that you've been executed would do just as well? Here are plenty of witnesses. The Lord Chief Justice, Lord High Admiral, Commander and Chief Secretary of State for the Home Department, First Lord of the Treasury, and Chief Solicitor of Police.
But where are they?
There they are. They'll all swear to it, won't you?
Am I to understand that all of us high officers of state are required to perjure ourselves to ensure your safety?
Why not? You'll be grossly insulted as usual.
Will the insult be cashed down or at a date?
It'll be a ready money transaction.
Well, it will be a useful discipline. Very good. Choose your fiction and I'll endorse it. Ha ha. Family pride. How'd you like that, my buck? But when I tell you that life without Yum...
No, Yum, bother Yum. Here, Commissioner, go and fetch Yum. Take Yum and marry Yum, only go away and never come back again. Here she is. Yum, are you particularly busy?
Not particularly.
You've 5 minutes to spare.
Yes.
Then go along with His Grace, the Archbishop of Titipu will marry you at once.
But if I'm to be buried alive...
Now, don't ask any questions, but do as I tell you, and Nekipu will explain all.
But one moment...
Not for worlds. Here comes the Mikado. Now, I'll have to ascertain whether I've obeyed his decree, and if he finds you alive, I shall have the greatest difficulty in persuading him that I've beheaded you. Close thing that. Here he comes.
What I love about that scene is that the tenor is just like... He is just so okay with dying. And for him, I just think that the stakes and the status are just hilarious because the tenor's just like, yeah, I'm really sad. I'm actually happy to die. You just kill me, it's fine. And then he's having to comfort them and say, it's okay, you can do it, it's fine. He's the one that's suicidal. But he's just like, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, just kill me, just do it now. and then the patter guy's just like, oh God, he's the one panicking. I love that. It's so topsy-turvy.
The emotions of that moment, the build up to this is so great because of coming on at the beginning of the scene for Here's Howdy Do.
Yeah.
This is like Robin and this character are these characters that once they show up in Act 2, barely leave. And they don't seem like they're like the de facto lead in the first half as much as the second half really thrusts them into like the driver's seat, but they're not even in control. And being that the show is operating without them, they're just constantly getting into more and more trouble. And when I first saw this show, it was the Jonathan Miller production, the video with Eric Idle. And I remember reading along with the lib and watching it in high school and going, oh, this second act is so perfect. The way in which this character keeps trying to get ahead of the game and making it worse and trying to get ahead of it again, and how that's going to multiply when the Mikado shows up.
It's just how the whole plot of the Mikado is just this character desperately trying to save his own skin. And then by the end of it, he's just so exhausted. You know what? Just find that hilarious.
This is the best one.
It really is.
Yeah, it's the best one.
I absolutely love this character and this story. And the thing is, the emotional significance of Titwillow, it's not quite on a par with Jack Point coming on at the end of Yeomen, but it's second to that.
No, but it feels good. It feels super good.
I'd say that it's... But and the thing is, Jack Point can, not always, not in my ideal universe, but Jack Point can come across very badly, very incelly, very predatory. There are ways of playing Jack Point which do not make that ending pleasant or cathartic. Whereas this whole story, the story of the Mikado and this character's placing of it, is just so charming. And even if it was done badly, it's still going to be funny. Because the lines are just funny. Mm-hmm. But this character is never going to be bad, but it can be just utterly epic in ways that we've never even thought of before.
Have you got lyrics and dialogue at 20? I wonder.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like I could be bumping my scores for lyrics and dialogue and music.
And comedic potential 20.
20.
And emotional dramatic potential 18, because
20.
I appreciate that I'm not...
Why have I got 20?
I mean, I agree, it could be 20. But then enjoyment 10. So he only lost 3 marks from me in total.
This is a character, though, when I played him, every single scene, I have 800 lines I look forward to saying. So I feel like...
Like, he has... Do you know one of my favourite moments in the canon? I'm just going to quickly find it for you.
Yeah.
But I have a left shoulder blade that is a miracle of loveliness. People come miles to see it. My right elbow has a fascination that few can resist. Allow me. It is on view Tuesdays and Fridays on presentation of visiting card. As for my circulation, it is the largest in the world.
And yet he fled.
And yet he fled.
Can I give you mine? I got one here. Okay, hold on. Let's keep going.
And is now masquerading in this town disguised as a second trombone.
A second trombone?
Yes. Would it be troubling you too much if I asked you to produce him?
It's quite easy. That is, it's rather difficult. In point of fact, he's gone abroad.
Gone abroad? His address?
Knightsbridge. I love, it's quite easy. That is, it's rather difficult.
That is so good.
It's just like, he says the wrong sentence and he's like, scratch that, reverse it, like, falls.
And I know he's part of a trio in this, but just this whole scene. Yes, we can wait until then.
Oh, so good.
Oh my god.
I'm just going to read...
I'm going to fix Mikado. I promise you all I'm going to fix the Mikado so we can all feel good about it.
Anger? Not a bit, my boy. Why, I love her myself. Charming little girl, isn't she? Pretty eyes, nice hair, taking little thing all together. Very glad to hear my opinion backed by a competent authority. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Take him away.
Yeah.
Like,
take him away. Yeah. Wow, it's like there's proper anxiety there.
It would be taken as an earnest of your desire to comply with the imperial will if you succeeded in cutting it half off. I've always taken it as like, oh, I'm not going to cut my head half off. That's going to hurt. What he's saying is, as official headsman, my objection to this has usually been, if I cut my head half off, that's going to hurt, and that sucks. So I would go, no, pardon me, but that I am adamant. As official headsman, my reputation is at stake, and I can't consent to embark on a professional operation unless I see my way to a successful result. Here, for the first time ever, I meant the objection as genuinely that this is true. He's like, no. Like, if I'm the headsman, I have to do a good job.
Yeah.
Or else my reputation, like, I will be dead, but if I do a bad job, I will look bad.
Yeah.
And that is really funny.
Oh.
Kadisha.
The miscreant who robbed me of my love. But vengeance pursues. They are heating the cauldron.
Kadisha, behold a suppliant at your feet. Kadisha, mercy.
Mercy. Had you mercy on him? See here, you have slain my love. He did not love me, but he would have loved me in time. I am an acquired taste. Only the educated palate can appreciate me. I was educating his palate when he left me. Well, he is dead. And where shall I find another? It takes years to train a man to love me. Am I to go through the weary round again and at the same time implore mercy for you who robbed me of my prey? I mean, my pupil, just as his education was on the point of completion. Oh, where shall I find another?
Here.
What?
Kadisha. For years I have loved you with a white-hot passion that is slowly but surely consuming my very vitals. Ah, shrink not from me. If there is aught of woman's mercy in your heart, turn not away from a love-sick suppliant whose every fibre thrills to your tiniest touch. True it is that under a poor mask of disgust I've endeavoured to conceal a passion whose inner fires are broiling the soul within me, but the fire will not be smothered. It defies all attempts at extinction, and, breaking forth all the more eagerly for its long restraint, it declares itself in words that will not be weighed, that cannot be schooled, that should not be too severely criticized. Kadisha, I dare not hope for your love, but I will not live without it.
You, who was hands still reek with the blood of my betrothed, dare to address words of passion for the woman you have so foully wronged?
I too accept my love or I perish on the spot.
Go to. Who knows so well as I do that no one ever died of a broken heart?
You know not what you say. Listen. And there's a song. Tit Willow.
Did he really die of love?
He really did.
All on account of a cruel little hen?
Yes.
Poor little chap.
It's an affecting tale and quite true. I knew the bird intimately.
Did you? He must have been very fond of her.
His devotion was something extraordinary.
Poor little chap. And if I refuse you, will you go and do the same?
At once.
No, you mustn't. Anything but that. Oh, I'm a silly little goose.
You are.
And you won't hate me because I'm just a little teeny-weeny wee bit bloodthirsty, will you?
Hate you? Oh, Katisha, is there not beauty even in bloodthirstiness?
My idea exactly. It's good. The thing is that you actually totally get down into who he is. He's got a history here. Like he's a fully fleshed out character.
You know not what you say.
Because the thing is, like, it's like it's like he is flipping out and panicking, not knowing what to do, until, because he's flailing, and then she says, who knows so well as I do that no one ever yet died of a broken heart, but he knows that's not true, and he can prove it. And the thing is, you know, obviously he doesn't literally know a bird, but then actually, in my version of the Mikado, where they're all ethereal forest creatures, he probably would have done.
Mm.
But even if it's not literal, it's allegorical. Maybe the Patter Man had like a friend who unalived himself. We just don't know, and he says this with such confidence that that's so interesting. To me, I just think that he is just such an enjoyable character. He serves the text very well. He is very much part of the tapestry of the Mikado. He interacts so well with every other character. Every other character very much has their moment. In the sense that Yeomen is all kind of directed towards this tragedy of Jack Point, which I fully agree with. I think that the tragedy is the main heart of the play, and it should be directed towards that. But this character just so serves the story. And the story is so good because he is supporting it so well. But it's not just about him. It's about everyone. And it's just so cleverly put together. And he's such a great part of that. Whereas Jack Point just is ever so slightly on like self-indulgent to me. Just ever so slightly. And yes, I think I already said this, but but the Mikado guy only lost 3 points for me total. I just
Altogether,
absolutely love him.
I bet I could have pumped him up too. A couple of things. I think he lost for me 4 points, and I probably could have moved him higher.
Yeah.
So yeah, my top three. I don't know. I think that again, they're the three I've done the most, and particularly this Patter guy I've done between 2011 and 2019 in 4 or 5 different productions. So I feel like it's one that is really fun to keep revisiting.
Yeah.
These other ones might change for me if I come back to them at some point soon.
Yeah, and I think that together, even though we've both kind of messed up in a couple of places and then later realised that we have, I think we have made a list that I am really, really happy with. The only thing that I'm not quite yet convinced of is that Lord Chancellor would beat Robin. But that's because of you, and that's because of your speech about Robin.
But then
So it's you that did that for me.
but I got him above Bunthorne for you.
Yes, you did.
So I did
but
that.
I would also put him above the Lord Chancellor. But that's the only. But I would move Bunthorne below Lord Chancellor after what you said about the Lord Chancellor. But I would probably put it Robin, Lord Chancellor, Bunthorne.
So you'd say Mikado guy, Jack Point.
Yeah, probably.
Robin.
But
Lord
I'm
Chancellor.
really happy with this list, and I appreciate that maybe I just don't see the Lord Chancellor in quite the same way you do, and I want to see you play him again now because I didn't really watch that Baron's Court.
You
show,
weren't
so
around,
I wasn't really around, so I only got to see you do it once in the summer, and I wasn't really watching you because I was in it. So you know, I think that I haven't really seen you do it properly.
I like
That'd
it.
be interesting.
Yeah. There's honestly no part here I dislike.
Yeah, I would really love to play any of these parts. They're all so interesting. It's such a good group of people.
And we can certainly thank we can thank Grossmith. We can thank people like Fred Sullivan and the other people who created these parts.
Fred Sullivan just did the judge, and then Wells.
Would have done.
Oh, he would have done Wells, but then he
think.
died, didn't he?
He died.
That's so sad.
But it's a good lineage, and got to shout out my guy Walty Passmore for playing Rudolph. Love him.
Yeah, I love. There are some. I was just saying yesterday because Will was showing me pictures of these guys, and there are some guys that you can tell just by looking at one picture they were incredible. But this was like a subversive, like weird, forward-thinking, like incredibly fearless actor. Just by like one photo.
I have no doubt in my mind. My hot take: Passmore probably better than Grossmith.
So that is the Powder People, and we are done for another video. And I'm really happy with how intelligent this one was. I think we were speaking very well, and I hope you guys like this format. Sadly, we are not usually in the same room, but we can do this again over Zoom. But please do subscribe and share these videos to your own GNS communities. I'd love to just get more viewers to my videos so I can get more of a wide array of opinions about these subjects, and I'll feel good and popular, and that'll be nice. So please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching. This has probably been another quite long one, but I hope it was worth it, and we'll see you on the next one.
Peace.